Hi everyone, I've just launched my Patreon, where you can support my channel and get early access to new recaps, including the next parts of Release That Witch and a lot more. New episodes are already waiting for you there. If you enjoy my content, don't miss the chance to be part of it. The next morning, Roland wakes up in his real world after his trip down into the dream world. He feels excited after finally confirming that each resident of the Building of Souls has a door leading to a fragment of their memory. The location in every fragment is most likely the place the defeated person cherished the most. If he's thinking correctly, Garcia's last memory remains at Clearwater Port, likely because that's where her path of blood and conquest began. Before leaving, he had asked Garcia about her memory door, but her clueless response made it clear she knew nothing about it. To her, that gate doesn't exist, and even if she were to enter her storage room and remodel it entirely, she still wouldn't notice the door. If that's true, then it's possible no one can access those memories in the dream world except for him. So, he decides to visit Zero's storage room to further solidify this assumption. Later, as he sits in his office, Wendy hands over the detailed profile of the new witches who have joined. The first is Annie, and after thoroughly reading through the profile, Roland feels optimistic that this must be the same Annie Evie always talks about. Roland also shares the secret message he received from Bay a week ago. Apparently, Tilly and the others will be arriving soon. Wendy is glad to hear this since Evie will finally be able to reunite with Annie. While Roland agrees that Evie will be immensely overjoyed to see her friend again, he isn't sure if Annie will be that welcoming. There are high chances that she might not forgive Evie. Moving on, Roland inquires about the woman who came with them. He's quite eager to learn more about her, especially since Yorko was particularly enthusiastic while mentioning her. While Roland has no issue employing her, he still wants to confirm her background first. Wendy then reveals that 76 gets along very well with the other 4 witches, especially Emmy. In fact, it's hard to tell that she isn't a witch herself. Furthermore, if 76 truly had ill intentions, Wendy is certain she wouldn't have risked her life so much just to buy the witch's time. Roland acknowledges this as well, and because of her efforts, he suggests making her the secretary of the Witch Union. Not only does this job complement her past she had with witches, but it would also ease Wendy's burden of management. But then, Nightingale suddenly appears and quickly objects to this idea. While Nightingale doesn't have anything concrete to say, she has a very bad feeling about 76. Roland can tell something must be off for Nightingale to react this way, so he decides to put the matter aside for now. She then suddenly apologizes to Roland for being too speculative about 76, but Roland fully understands her concerns. He also believes it's better to be cautious than to cry over spilled milk, especially when it's a safety concern. After all, Nightingale is in charge of Neverwinter City's internal security, so it's only natural for her to be worried. Roland then asks her what exactly she finds wrong with 76. After all, Nightingale's notes didn't mention anything suspicious about her. Nightingale reveals that while she didn't detect any lies from 76, her reactions and body language don't match that of a typical slave. Later, at the dining table, the new witches gather alongside 76. Emmy is absolutely overjoyed to see bread, fried eggs, and milk, a luxury she never had the chance to enjoy before. As Annie and the others eat together, smiles of joy spread across their faces. Meanwhile, 76 realizes that the witches have finally found the sanctuary they were searching for. It's only a matter of time before this place becomes the next holy city, because the Chosen One has appeared. Emmy then curiously turns to 76, noticing the heavy eye bag stretching across her face. She wonders why 76 didn't get any sleep. 76 explains that she was simply too excited to fall asleep. Emmy reminds her that Wendy promised to give them a tour of the city, so she should get some rest first. Speaking of Wendy, she soon arrives with a newly developed wheelchair. While Emmy is surprised to see it, Wendy reveals how Anna and Soraya stayed up late last night building it. With this, Hero will be able to move around on her own for short distances. The mention of Anna immediately catches 76's attention. Anna is the name of a high-tier witch she once heard from Nana. 76 finds it hard to believe that such a high-tier witch would go to such lengths to build something like this for a crippled witch. Hero sits in her new wheelchair, expressing her gratitude for the gift. Annie then curiously asks when they will be having their tour of Neverwinter. She also wonders if they can have 76 tag along, as it would be very lonely for her to stay behind. Wendy hesitates before responding, and 76 takes note of Wendy's hesitation. Wendy's behavior leads 76 to believe they are still practicing caution. However, in the next moment, Wendy, with her usual smiling face, happily agrees to let 76 join them. With that, Wendy decides to start their tour, and their first destination will be the center of Neverwinter, the Northern Mines. Hearing this, 76 begins dreading the worst, thinking that perhaps they want to scare them off with labor if they disobey. Well, it looks like 76 is just overthinking things. Contrary to her beliefs, Wendy explains how these mines are the source of energy for Neverwinter, She's confident they'll understand this more once they get there. As they walk through the city, 76 also takes note of how active the town is. While they're walking, Wendy decides to give a quick rundown of witches and their abilities. Usually when witches awaken, they face the dangers of antiphase. The church used to call it being possessed by devils. But it's really just a natural reaction to rapid magical growth, not the nonsense the church used to feed people. Wendy further explains how to avoid antiphase pain and how the evolution of abilities works. After getting the gist, Emmy is excited to see her abilities evolve. 76, on the other hand, is in shock. The way Wendy described antiphase and evolution, she made it sound like everyday knowledge. She's trying to figure out why Comet City would hide crucial details about antiphase and label it as the work of devils. After all, the more witches that survived, the more divine punishment warriors the church produced. Wendy then catches everyone's attention when she shows them the listening sigil. This, of course, only deepens 76's curiosity about how Wendy has this sigil from Tequila. Right then, Lightning and Maggie arrive. Seeing Maggie speak, Emmy is shocked to see a talking pigeon. But Annie clarifies to her that they are witches. Wendy further confirms this, claiming that Maggie is one of the sisters who evolved her abilities. 76 is once again shocked to hear this. To think that Wendy just called this pet-like pigeon a high-tier witch. Because according to her understanding of awakened witches, they are the echelon of the Alliance. So it's very odd to see even pigeons being called awakened witches. Emmy is totally excited to see an awakened witch, and is very curious to know what her new abilities are. Lightning then explains how Maggie can turn into a big flying monster, which is far from cute. 76, unable to grasp all this overwhelming information, questions Wendy on how they can tell if this pigeon has actually evolved. Wendy elaborates that they can figure this out through magic. If a normal witch's magic looks like a cloud or mist, it forms into a solid shape once they evolve. For example, Maggie's magic today looks like a pair of white outstretched wings, and it's incredibly different from the mist it used to be. Internally, 76 realizes that this definition of awakening is the same as what the Alliance used, meaning Maggie is indeed a high-tier witch. Wendy also admits that she hasn't fully solidified yet, so she still has a lot to learn compared to Anna and the others. Once again, 76 is bewildered to hear this. For her, a normal witch performing the role of a manager is highly unusual. After all, it defies the norms of how the Alliance used to operate 400 years ago. As they walk, 76 also makes sure to scan Maggie and Lightning to figure out if they are the chosen one. But since her ring doesn't react, it means they are not. Finally, they reach the mines. Upon entering, the first thing 76 notices is the slogans plastered around the tunnel. The slogans are meant to empower the laborers and encourage them to perform better. Wendy recalls how, before Roland became the ruler of the border town, these mines would only produce a few hundred golden royals worth of minerals each season. The production would always slow down, which is why locals could barely survive on their paychecks. But when Roland arrived in the western region and saved a witch named Anna, a new door opened between mortals and witches. Now that they are here at the mines, Wendy decides to let them meet Anna as well. Not only is she the busiest witch in the Union, but she is also the only one who has evolved twice, which earned her the title of True Genius. As they head toward the facility where Anna is, 76 notices that the place is heavily guarded, meaning if someone came alone, they wouldn't have been allowed to enter. Besides, 76 is curious to know why this so-called genius witch spends her days in the mountains. Once they arrive, Anna knocks the gate, and a little girl, who is Lucia's sister, Belle, opens the gate. Lucia and Anna are essentially in charge of researching the qualities of minerals in this facility. Furthermore, Lucia's abilities evolved when she reached the age of maturity, and her magic capacity is second only to Anna's. She is one of the few witches in the Union who can wield the Divine Sigil. As for the Divine Sigil, it is a weapon that requires an enormous amount of magic. For a typical witch, making all 4 magic stones glow simultaneously is a daunting task. Because of this, Roland decided to use it as a benchmark tool for every witch. So far, only 4 people have been able to light it up to the last stone, and everyone is eagerly looking forward to seeing the 5th candidate capable of achieving such a feat. Now let's shift our focus to 76, who is growing increasingly astonished with each revelation thrown her way. For her, it is shocking enough to hear the name of that artifact again, let alone the fact that these people actually have one. You see, during the Age of Tequila, that weapon was exclusive to the top 3 chairs of the Alliance. Blade then humbly asks how many witches have evolved new abilities. Well, the number is quite large, so Wendy takes a solid minute just to count to 10. Of course, 76 is once again shocked. Damn, everything is a shock for 76 at this point. I'm starting to feel like I'm repeating her reactions over and over. Hopefully, I'm not dragging the story down. Finally, Agatha emerges from the lab room, walking past the visitors without acknowledging their presence. Seeing Agatha immediately jogs 76's memory. She has definitely seen this woman before. Though it was a long time ago, Agatha was a prodigy, one of the high-tier witches of Tequila. 76 could never forget how she looked. But it just doesn't make sense. How is she still alive after all this time? It is simply unfathomable to think that she has just reunited with a witch from Tequila. Later that night, Sylvie reports to Nightingale that 76 has left the building. She jumped out from the second-floor corridor. Well, this doesn't surprise Nightingale, as she already suspected that 76 was up to something. However, she has yet to figure out her agenda. Later, Nightingale reports this to Roland, who also finds it strange. It is actually surprising that a typical mortal managed to bypass Nightingale's detecting magic. Suddenly, they receive a report that 76 is now moving south along the outer district streets and has stopped at a corner, likely waiting for someone. Then, in another update, Lightning reports that the target is moving again, and this time toward Agatha, likely to attack. The reporter further reveals that 76 seems to be using the Stone of Divine Judgment. We then cut to Agatha. As she attempts to attack 76 with her ice magic, it simply vanishes before it can even touch her. As Agatha dreads the worst, 76 suddenly greets her with a gesture that follows Tequila's old traditions. She then surprises Agatha even further by addressing her as the youngest high-tier awakener, Lady Agatha. Later, they arrive at a pub to catch up. 76 hails Agatha as her senior and pays her proper respects. As they talk, 76 shares her journey and how she ended up here. Technically, there are 3 other survivors from Tequila, though they are no longer witches. Their bodies could not last through the centuries, so they had to use another method. In fact, even 76 is currently just a soul, possessing a body. The body she is currently occupying belonged to a Church Judgment Army soldier. In short, not only is she possessing this body, but she can also freely activate the Stone of Divine Judgment's effects. This was actually Lady Alice's final goal. She wanted to create a divine punishment warrior that contained both witch and mortal. This way, blood loss would not kill the witch. Instead, the soul would transfer to another body, achieving the perfect super soldier. Agatha then questions the purpose of her visit. But before answering, 76 first wants to know if the Witch Union is aware of the Devils, the Divine War, and the Alliance. Agatha nods in acknowledgement and further reveals that they have, in fact, already begun preparing for the Third Divine War. The Witch Union recently engaged in combat with the Devils, even managing to take down a Slayer along with 4 fearsome Devils. After confirming all her doubts regarding the Witch Union and their motives, 76 finally decides to come clean about her identity. She reveals that she is here to find the Chosen One, someone capable of activating the divine punishment apparatus and eradicating all devils in a single sweep. Agatha is stunned by the mention of such a powerful device. To identify the Chosen One, Lady Pasha instructed her to find someone who displays the light of the key through a prismatic magic stone while using their abilities. This stone is embedded in a ring, which 76 now hands over to Agatha. 76 also expresses her willingness to explain everything to Wendy, since she is the manager of the witches. However, Agatha suggests she speak directly with the prince. Roland may seem like a flawed mortal, but he is the heart of the witches. 76 is skeptical. How could talking to a mortal possibly help? Agatha reassures her by admitting that she once felt the same way. But over time, she realized that without Roland, the Witch Union wouldn't exist. Neverwinter would not have flourished the way it has, and Greycastle would not have been able to defeat the Church. If 76 truly wants to find the Chosen One, she must share this information with Roland as well. When Agatha first emerged from her crystal, she was devastated to learn that the Alliance was no more. She feared that no one remained to save the world from the devils. But Roland instilled in her a belief that mortals could defeat devils. It sounded insane at first, but over time, Agatha found hope in Roland, and that is why the witches of Neverwinter trust him without hesitation. If Tequila truly wishes to fight alongside Neverwinter against the devils, 76 must earn his trust. As Agatha hands the ring back to her, 76 agrees but asks for some time to reconsider. After exchanging goodbyes, she finally parts ways. Once 76 is gone, Agatha signals for Nightingale to reveal herself. Nightingale instantly emerges from the shadows. She is bewildered, since when did Agatha see her coming? Agatha explains that it happened the moment she received the ring from 76. The ring does not detect magic but rather a pillar of light, also known as the key. Since Nightingale's pillar illuminated the entire room, it was impossible for her to go unnoticed. This means that 76 already knew Nightingale was trailing her. Nightingale then asks if Agatha truly believes in 76. Agatha nods, and that is precisely why she did not take the ring from her, because she wants 76 to believe in the Witch Union as well. Nightingale's concerns ease, and she too hopes that 76 will make the right decision. Later, 76 reunites with Emmy and the others. They are all engrossed in discussing the turbulent drinks they had, unable to stop showering relentless praise on the unbelievably rich and unique flavors. Emmy is convinced that even the elites of Wolfheart City have never tasted anything this incredible. Meanwhile, 76 takes a seat, immediately capturing everyone's attention. She has something important to say. She finally introduces herself as a tequila witch from the ruins of Forbidden Maze. And her name is Phyllis. She explains that she is searching for the Chosen One and wishes to meet the ruler of Neverwinter to discuss the Divine War. Hiro and Emmy are absolutely shocked. Not only is 76 an extraordinary witch, but Phyllis is her true name. The next day, she finally meets Roland, who warmly welcomes her to Neverwinter. Once again, she states her true name and explains that she is using a mortal's body to conceal her real identity. Now that she has revealed everything, the name 76 is no longer valid, so she prefers to be called Phyllis from now on. They sit down for a thorough discussion, aiming to understand each other better. After all, if they are to fight the devils as allies, mutual understanding is crucial. Roland has always been curious about how the alliance fractured into two factions. Why would the church, which was founded by witches, go on to oppress them? And most of all, the concept of perfected divine punishment soldiers perplexes him. If she is willing, he wants Phyllis to educate him on the reasoning behind all of this. Phyllis explains that before entering the maze ruins, no one expected things to turn out the way they did. Those ruins played a pivotal role. Without them, there would be no divine punishment soldiers, and the surviving witches wouldn't have lasted as long as they have. Unfortunately, they were too late. Aside from learning the soul transfer method, the survivors also uncovered other things. This discovery led Lady Natalia to confront the Queen of the Comet City, whose name is Alice, and ultimately, why the alliance split apart. Roland presses her about the other things she is referring to. However, Phyllis is not yet comfortable revealing that information. She assures him that once she finds the Chosen One, she will explain everything in detail. And when that time comes, Lady Pasha will personally come to speak with him. Pasha is the prime candidate to succeed the third chair and is the trusted leader of the tequila survivors. After hearing Phyllis's account, Roland realizes that even in the face of dire circumstances, the two factions were unable to work together. The perfected divine punishment soldiers do not require sacrificing witches, only volunteers for the transfer ritual. So why did Alice want to dismantle what remained of the alliance? Phyllis corrects him that it is not as simple as he imagines. Her original host was a divine punishment soldier who failed to transfer properly, forcing her to spend almost 50 years preparing to wield that body. And if one were to include the time required to master swordsmanship and combat tactics, it would take another 100 years. Alice needed a vast number of host bodies. Since witches do not die naturally, a divine punishment warrior with centuries of experience would be far stronger than any newly converted soldier. Creating more host bodies was essential to continuously accumulating the experience of souls. Thus, weak witches were required as resources to create more host bodies. Lady Alice believed that in order to accomplish this, she needed to replace the alliance and become the absolute ruler of all witches. Only then could she transform select witches into disposable materials for the greater cause. Under the immense pressure of the Divine War, she nearly succeeded. The upper echelons of the alliance had silently accepted her methods. However, if it weren't for the new discoveries inside the ruins, the Divine Punishment Army would have been the only viable plan for survival. Phyllis's detailed lore dump sounds very plausible to Roland. If a divine punishment warrior had the brains of a witch and an immortal lifespan, centuries of combat experience would make for a terrifyingly powerful soldier. Roland reflects that if they had encountered perfected divine punishment warriors at Blizzard Town, the battle's outcome would have been vastly different. It seems that the extended time it takes to get used to a body is no longer the focus, since as long as the soul can continue to transfer, it would make sense to preserve powerful veteran warriors. Roland reminds her that only veteran divine punishment warriors can defeat high-tier devils, which means they need a large number of host bodies to transfer souls into. Phyllis reassures him that there is another method for preserving souls. She can transfer them to vessels, a process known as hibernation. Though she knows that these hibernation vessels and the soul transfer process are related to what was found in the ruins, she can't confirm more details as only Lady Pasha holds the authority to disclose such crucial information. Roland then asks her another pressing question. How exactly is the Chosen One supposed to defeat the devils? He worries that he won't be able to assist them in their cause if he doesn't understand anything about their plans. Phyllis claims to have no knowledge of this. It is Celine who is in charge of searching for the apparatus. She assures Roland that they can discuss this further once they find the Chosen One. The process of finding them is harmless. Basically, all the witches need to do is demonstrate their abilities once, and Phyllis plans to observe their magic using this ring. Through the ring, she can see if any witches have the potential to become the Chosen One. Roland designates the courtyard as the place where Phyllis can test every witch. Later, in the courtyard, the first witch to appear for the test is Agatha, who demonstrates her abilities right away. Phyllis looks through her ring, but it's clear that Agatha is not the one she's looking for. Instead of leaving, Agatha decides to stay and observe Phyllis, as she is quite curious about the ring. The testing continues, with Echo and Leaf stepping forward next, but neither shows the potential Phyllis is searching for. Then comes Anna. Anna's potential is slightly weaker than Leaf's, which means she does not meet the criteria either. It becomes apparent that the chosen one is not among these witches. Even though some witches display intensely bright energy pillars, it still doesn't compare to the light Phyllis saw last night. Agatha explains that witches typically do not practice their abilities at night, and since Phyllis was staying in the affairs building at the time, it's impossible that the ring could have detected anything from the castle. But Phyllis reveals that the light was so strong that distance didn't matter. At this point, Agatha suddenly demands that Phyllis hand over the ring. While Nightingale might not allow Phyllis to enter the castle, Agatha is willing to help her find the chosen one within. The next day, Wendy and Agatha give Phyllis the good news. They have found the pillar of light she was searching for. However, they can't confirm if this is the chosen one she's looking for. Phyllis is certain that the pillar of light is a clear sign that they have found the chosen one. She's overjoyed and excited to discover which high-tier witch is behind this. Soon, however, Phyllis's happiness morphs into shock when she learns that the pillar of light is coming from Roland Wimbledon. Agatha admits that it's hard to believe, but she wasn't the only witness. Nightingale, Anna, and Wendy also saw it. To confirm further, they even checked the witches who lived on the second floor of the castle. Agatha tried testing it with a magic stone, but Roland basically had no trace of magic on him. But Phyllis argues that she didn't see any light from him yesterday. It's strange that when Roland woke up, the light disappeared as well. Agatha mentions that they asked Roland about it. He revealed that this unusual occurrence is due to Zero's soul battlefield, which caused Roland to enter the dream realm. Phyllis is baffled because she has no idea what the soul battlefield business is all about. Wendy then explains that Zero was the last pope of the Hermes Church, and she pulled Roland into her soul battlefield for a long time. This may be the reason the magic ring reacted the way it did. Roland himself was surprised when he heard about the light he exuded during his sleep. He also suggested Phyllis try it once again this afternoon when he is asleep. Later that afternoon, while Phyllis is resting, Agatha comes to chat with her. It's revealed that Phyllis fainted when she saw Roland's pillar of light, so they brought her here to recover. Agatha brings up the importance of the chosen one in the upcoming battle. After all, the witches have fought for hundreds of years already. But Phyllis reminds her that none of those battles were in the witches' favor. They've lost twice, forced to retreat across the Kingdom of Dawn and into the wastelands. If they lose again, they will be gone permanently. Agatha, however, sternly assures Phyllis that victory will be theirs this time. While Agatha does not know what they found in the maze ruins that gave them so much hope in this so-called chosen one, she is sure that it will not be because of the ruins' secrets that they are going to win. In the past 400 years, mortals have not been stagnant. There is more than one way to kill devils. Furthermore, Agatha reminds Phyllis that Roland seems to possess one of the keys to God, so she suggests that Phyllis take a look before contacting the Tequila Witches again. Phyllis is shocked upon hearing this revelation, while Agatha further confirms that it is the key of art. I don't know what they are talking about, but let's hope to find out soon. We then cut to Roland, who is scouting the city wall along with Iron Axe, taking note of the demon activities. Given how quiet it is, Roland inquires whether there has been any activity lately. Iron Axe reveals that it has mostly been random strays, and their patrol squad alone has been able to take care of them. Roland then reveals that in the coming few days, he wants to conduct another artillery exercise at the city wall. However, he wants it to be as loud as possible while avoiding wasting resources. Iron Axe is not sure why they need to put on such a hollow display of power just for show. Roland further explains how he wants to proceed with this fake display of power. First, he plans to bury explosives in 3 places near where the projectiles will land. He intends to use actual ammunition to display accuracy and pre-buried gunpowder to create explosions. He especially wants the last explosion to be spectacularly huge. Finally, we learn why Roland wants these explosions. It is unfathomable for Phyllis to acknowledge that the chosen one she was looking for could be a mortal king. So, in order to flex his muscles, Roland plans to show her the grand power of his artillery and make her realize the strength of the modern age. Iron Axe, on the other hand, raises a valid concern. He fears that if their soldiers witness this fake display of power, they might believe their weapons are stronger than they actually are, distorting their perception of their true strength. However, Roland has no worries about this since he already plans on phasing out gunpowder weapons soon. For example, the 12-pound cannon is already unsuited for future combat. He has something new prepared, though he keeps it a secret for now. But he assures Iron Axe that the weapon he is developing is capable of indirect fire at both close and long range, is portable enough for multiple soldiers to carry its parts, and features superb power, a simple design, and low-effort operation. Now that Roland has revealed this much, he finally reveals the name of the weapon. He is building a mortar. Later, Roland visits Anna. As soon as he enters her room, he expresses his desire to talk about the dream realm. He has not been able to discuss this in detail before. He then proceeds to explain how his dream world works, what it consists of, and all that we have seen before. He tells her about Zero and the day-to-day life he has there, and just like that, they both fall asleep together. The next day arrives, and Roland meets Baroff and Iris in his office. Roland is surprised to see them this early. Eventually, they sit down for a talk. Iris is here with reports on the preparations for the attack they are about to launch in the southernmost region. They are ready to execute the plan. By this spring, the First Army will reach around 7,000 soldiers. Iris then brings up something she heard from Iron Axe. There is supposed to be an artillery exercise today. She suggests allowing the citizens of Neverwinter to witness this majestic sight as well. She is sure it would help boost morale and greatly encourage people to join the military with newfound confidence. Barov sharply responds to her suggestion. As far as he is concerned, citizens might become frightened and interpret it as a display of demonic power. But Iris believes it is up to the government representatives to work hard on awareness, ensuring that every citizen is educated about the true purpose. She suggests designating a specific viewing area on the wall and having police officers maintain order. Since seating will be limited, ticketing the event would be a valid option. Pricing tickets at 2 silvers each would deter a massive crowd from overwhelming the area. Not to mention, it could serve as a potential source of income for the government. She also suggests curating the audience. If only people between 15 and 30 years old can purchase tickets, it would ensure confidence in both current and future industry workers, strengthening their resolve to fight the divine war. When she asks Roland for his thoughts, he is already excited. This sounds like a military parade to him, and he is actually proud of her for coming up with the idea. Roland looks forward to the event. The thought of having his own military parade excites him to no end. Later that day, a government official announces Roland's upcoming event. There will be a public artillery exercise in 3 days at the Western City Wall, and everyone is encouraged to witness the magnificence of the new technology Roland has built. However, to attend, people must meet the requirements, bringing 2 silver coins and their ID card. In the crowd, we spot Carter's wife, who cannot help but admire Roland for the next thing he is working on. Suddenly, one of her little fans spots her in the street and calls out to her. The girl has brought a gift for May, because her plays are encouraging and motivating. She explains that if her father were still alive, he would have loved the plays too. The girl shares her story. Her father passed away, sending her into depression. But when she watched one of May's performances, her mood drastically improved. In the play, everyone who died defending their family or kingdom was granted the title of hero by the king. Her mother told her that her father was just a normal hunter. But this story made her feel like he was more than that. For this very reason, she wants to thank May. Now, everyone calls her the daughter of a hero, and it fills her with immense pride. She admires her father so much that if the First Army accepted women, she would have picked up a rifle and fought against their enemies. May asks if she is not afraid of dying, knowing how dangerous the battlefield is. The little girl recalls her past. During the months of demons, many people tried to migrate to Longsong Fortress, but many died before making it. Even more perished in the slums of Longsong, and the streets were filled with frozen corpses. Back then, she trembled with fear, afraid that if she closed her eyes, she would become just like them. Now, she wants to stand up for others and fight for a better future. May pats the little girl on the head, admiring her courage, then accepts the gift. The girl rushes off after saying her goodbyes. Later, back home, Knight Carter learns that his wife plans to watch the artillery exercise with everyone. Carter thought she hated violence, so he suggests she should not force herself. His wife teases him, wondering if he simply does not want to be there with her. This is when we learn that May is expecting a child. Later, Roland congratulates Carter on the news. However, he reminds him not to neglect his duties, as there are still months before the child's birth. When the delivery date arrives, Roland promises Carter a long vacation so he can take care of his wife. Speaking of childbirth, Roland suddenly realizes that they lack proper infrastructure for medical emergencies. He decides to build a facility before these problems pile up in the future. As they stand at the docks, Tilly's ship finally arrives. Roland promptly welcomes her. They all catch up before Roland holds a meeting with Tilly and other major witches. Roland updates Tilly about the recent encounter with the Tequila Witches and the Chosen One fuss, though he has yet to figure out what this divine apparatus truly is. For now, his main focus is on the plans to conduct a public military exercise outside the western walls, hoping to restore hope in the despairing hearts of the Tequila Witches. Furthermore, this military exercise is also for the citizens. Roland wants every citizen to witness the power they hold, ensuring their resolve remains unshaken when they eventually face the devils. This is when Andrea suggests something extra. Instead of just blowing up firearms unnecessarily for show, they should use real demons as their targets. It would be far more entertaining for the masses. If the evil horrors that have been plaguing the Western region were to be blown apart before their eyes, it would excite the public even more. So, Roland gives his final verdict: demons will be used as targets. To capture the necessary demons, Andrea takes on the task. Evie, being the cage conjurer she is, offers to help. Wendy, on the other hand, isn't sure if they should be doing something this dangerous. Nightingale assures her that the forest area within Sister Leaf's influence won't pose much of a threat. After all, Leaf can surveil all movements of both witches and demons. Even if they encounter underworld devils, they can simply utilize the sigil in the worst-case scenario. To make things more fun, Tilly decides to turn the demon hunt into a legitimate competition, where the witches will compete against each other. The one who captures the most demons will be rewarded with a month's worth of turbulent drinks. For safety, all the sisters will be divided into 3 groups. Roland then asks his sister if they should let Phyllis participate as well. Tilly does not seem to have any objections, especially since it would be a good opportunity for Phyllis to see firsthand how firearms can be a game-changer against real threats. Capturing a demon with a divine punishment warrior's body isn't going to be a big deal, and she will be more confident in Neverwinter's abilities once she sees their power. Roland agrees to the suggestion. Later, we see Evie staring at the room where Annie is staying. Her hesitation to go inside is pretty evident. The scene flashes back to when Roland first told her about Annie. At first, Evie fell into disbelief, unable to grasp the idea that her long-lost friend was still alive. But Roland had suggested she check for herself. So here we are in the present. As she extends her hand to knock on the door, she hesitates. That's when Softfeather arrives because she already knew Evie would struggle. After all, Evie's personality takes a complete 180 when it comes to Annie. Since Evie can't bring herself to knock, Softfeather takes it upon herself and starts banging the hell out of the door. Eventually, Annie responds to the violent knocks. The moment their eyes meet, Annie's eyes well up with tears as memories of their shared past come rushing back. Evie hugs her immediately and keeps apologizing. Annie, teary-eyed herself, accepts her apology. In fact, she doesn't blame her. It's then that Annie decides to sign the contract and pledge her loyalty to the king. The scene then cuts to the city wall, where Roland lays out the details of the hunting operation. This competition is meant to teach them the importance of friendship, and protecting each other is the most important thing. Strictly, no one is allowed to leave Sister Leaf's territory. The rules are simple. Whoever captures the most demons in a day will take first place. However, the demons must be locked within cages to count. Also, if any team leaves Leaf's territory, the entire group will be automatically disqualified. With everything cleared up, Lightning and Maggie happily fly away, eager to be the first to hunt. Ash and the others also decide to get moving. Meanwhile, Tilly asks Roland who he thinks will win. Roland has high hopes for Maggie and Lightning. They may not be the most powerful, but their speed will undoubtedly help them shove the demons into cages before anyone else. Tilly then decides to place bets on the teams, and Roland is more than happy to compete. She's betting on the witches from Sleeping Island to win. If her guess turns out to be correct, then half of the profit from turbulent drinks should go toward rewarding the witches who contribute the most to the city's development. Roland has no issues with her demands, but asks what she would offer in return. To that, Tilly reveals that if she loses, she will live in Neverwinter from now on. Of course, Roland is surprised to hear this, but Tilly stands by her bet. She is confident that Roland will lose. Suddenly, Nightingale appears behind Roland and reveals that Andrea's magic seems to have solidified. We then cut to Andrea, who is working alongside Ash as her teammate. Spotting a boar, they immediately get to work. Andrea knocks it out without killing it entirely. Since Andrea managed to render it unconscious, Ash is now tasked with carrying the boar, which of course doesn't sit well with her. But she doesn't have a choice. Andrea then asks Sister Leaf if she can point them to a location with more monsters. Sister Leaf promptly gives them precise directions. As they head toward their next target, we cut to Agatha and Phyllis. They chat while walking, and Agatha reminds Phyllis not to underestimate the other witches in the competition. As witches of Tequila, they have a reputation to uphold, and Agatha wants to snag first place for herself. After roaming for a while, they come across a flying beast. Agatha swiftly unleashes her icy magic and slashes the creature down in one clean strike, then freezes it to ensure it stays down. Phyllis is absolutely amazed by Agatha's sleek and effortless fighting style. She asks if they should drag the creature back to the wall. Agatha decides to leave it for now as it won't die if left alone for a bit. They should gather more first and bring them all back together. With that, she decides to find their next target. As she walks forward, Phyllis notices how Agatha seems to be taking this competition very seriously. She worries that Agatha might be biased against the Tequila witches in the future. Regardless, she suddenly reveals to Agatha that ever since Lady Eleanor's sacrifice, their numbers have dwindled. Everyone has more or less developed a common understanding. Whether a witch is a high-tier awakener or a regular witch, no one should be placed in a strict hierarchy. Pasha has always firmly believed that every witch is equally important. Agatha claims to share the same belief. When she sees how the Neverwinter witches treat each other, she sometimes thinks that they are the true inheritors of the new age. Finally, Phyllis asks the pressing question that has been weighing on her. How does Agatha view the Tequila Witches and Neverwinter? When it comes to her loyalty, Agatha firmly states that she is loyal to her own beliefs. That being said, she hopes that all the Tequila Witches will soon join the Western region and fight the devils alongside Neverwinter under Roland's command. Of course, Phyllis feels a little dejected hearing this. She had hoped Agatha would put her faith in the Tequila Witches and fight alongside them, especially considering how Agatha desperately wants to represent Tequila in this competition. Phyllis assumed she would feel the same when it came to battling the devils. Agatha reminds her that whether it's Tequila, Comet City, Anley Tower, or any of the many cities in the Fertile Land, the only reason the Alliance came into existence was that they all wanted to defeat the devils. And defeating the devils has nothing to do with Agatha's morals, beliefs, or which faction she supports. After the First Divine War, witches removed mortal leadership and dominated the Fertile Land. However, because they were too focused on differentiating between the strong and the weak, they failed to work together and defend against the devil's attacks. Now mortals have proven their power. So, to her, there is no difference between pledging loyalty to the Alliance or pledging to Roland. Only he, Roland, the King of Greycastle, can unite the entire world and nurture this new generation of witches. Phyllis is shocked to hear this. As far as she understands, Neverwinter is the new Alliance now. But Agatha corrects her that Neverwinter is just a part of the Alliance. Roland probably wouldn't like that name, but regardless, his goal remains the same as the others, which is to win the Battle of Divine Will. Tequila, the Witch Association, and Sleeping Island, as well as all the kingdoms, must unite and fight the devils to determine the fate of everyone. In short, it's not a matter of loyalty, it's about survival. Phyllis finally understands that Agatha's desire for Tequila to win does not conflict with her loyalty to Roland. Just like 400 years ago, all the cities in the Fertile Land were loyal to the Alliance. The only difference now is that the 3 chairs of the Alliance have been replaced with a mortal leader. Suddenly they hear a commotion in the air, and it turns out to be Maggie holding her lute. Phyllis is shocked to see a devil right in front of her, but Agatha assures her that it's just Maggie. After evolving, she gained the ability to transform into any winged creature, and devils are no exception. Seeing how Maggie can fly around with her prey, Phyllis thinks it's a bit unfair, as they don't stand a chance against a flying opponent. But Agatha assures her that maintaining such a transformation consumes a copious amount of magic. Once Maggie reaches her limit, Lightning won't be able to capture demons as easily on her own. Eventually, they both continue hunting more monsters. After a while, Sister Leaf announces the end of the competition. Everyone gathers at the city wall with their loot. Once the counting is done, it is revealed that the Neverwinter team only scored 7 points. This announcement shocks the hell out of Phyllis, as it means that the Sleeping Island team alone is responsible for capturing the remaining 80 demons. Meanwhile, Lightning is busy blaming Maggie for getting distracted from the main goal and eating eggs instead. As Lightning rants at Maggie, Wendy announces that the Sleeping Island team gathered 15 points. Andrea and Ash also start bickering, blaming each other for their low hunting count. In the background, Wendy announces that the Tequila team has scored 22 points. As the winners, they will receive a month's worth of turbulent drinks. Of course, this unexpected victory doesn't make sense to Phyllis. After all, there are clearly more than 100 demons in the cages. Wendy then reveals that Sister Leaf caught the rest of them. Apparently, Sister Leaf had been instructed to let only a limited number of demons roam around during the competition. So, she trapped all the remaining monsters outside the playing field beforehand and only allowed a set amount to pass through. The time for the commemoration of this military parade has finally arrived. People have started gathering outside the city wall. Iron Axe reports that the artillery squad has finished preparations. Hearing this, Roland commands Sister Echo to sing the March of the Armed Forces. As soon as she begins, the melody fills the air. Following her song, the soldiers start their parade. The audience is astonished at the sight of the marching military, and coupled with Sister Echo's energetic melody, the crowd is charged with enthusiasm and energy. Once the soldiers are ready with the artillery, Iron Axe instructs them to aim, and all of the soldiers promptly target the poor monsters inside the cages. With the countdown from 3, the artillery team begins bombarding the hell out of those monsters. Once the dust settles, the only thing that remains are scattered limbs. The sight is so majestic that it leaves the public in complete astonishment. Phyllis is also losing her bananas after witnessing such a display of power. The explosions are so grand that they completely obliterate everything. Given this brutality, she is absolutely certain that no devil can survive this. She finally understands why Agatha has so much confidence in Roland. The chemists from Grey Castle feel immense pride after witnessing the power of chemistry. Now they all want a laboratory just like the one Kyle Sichi has. We also see Carl and Iris, and while Iris feels very proud of Roland's strength, Carl is absolutely awestruck. The sheer impact of the explosions has shaken him to his core. Iris then starts reiterating the usual praises about Roland's might, but since we've heard them so many times before, we'll skip over them and cut to Roland's office. Phyllis and Agatha are now standing before Roland. It appears that this display of power has had a profound effect on Phyllis, and she seems to have changed her mind. Before contacting the Tequila Witches, she wants to ask a few questions. You see, if the Tequila Witches can't find the chosen one they're looking for, then there's no doubt their war with the devils will drag on for many more years. And if the weapons she saw are limited, and mortals take a long time to build them, then she fears they won't be enough to hold off the devils for much longer. So she wants Roland to confirm whether he can mass-produce the defensive weapons. Well, this question doesn't have a simple answer, so Roland wants to point out a few things first. The fortress cannons are just defensive weapons. They may seem heavy and difficult to transport with human or animal labor, but that's not really a problem when vehicles are involved. So, he plans to modify them into something that can be used for both offense and defense with just a few adjustments. As for vehicles, these machines can carry anything. The simplest example would be a 3-masted schooner. Roland plans to develop mobile land vehicles in the future, and Neverwinter City is already researching them. Of course, the idea of a war machine that can travel anywhere while carrying heavy weapons sounds like something out of a fantasy. Roland, however, further assures her that he can increase the production of weapons once the new machinery is developed. He's certain that within a year or two, they'll be able to line the entire city wall with firearms. Phyllis is astonished to hear this. Usually it takes people much longer just to build basic catapults and crossbows. With her first question answered, she moves on to the second. She noticed that the cannons, in particular, had immense destructive power, and the explosions seemed artificial. So she wants to know if they're the strongest weapons he has. To this, Roland explains that, given the current level of technology, cannons are actually among the weakest tier weapons. He continues bombarding her with all the potential Neverwinter has, and poor Phyllis can't help but feel both fascinated and shocked at every turn. Eventually, she decides to contact Pasha and the other survivors. Once she crushes the magic stone in her ring, they'll be able to sense her location. Though it will take a day or two before they can have a direct conversation, since she doesn't know when Pasha will finish preparing the magic core. Later, after Phyllis leaves, Tilly arrives to talk with Roland. Of course, she's here to discuss the results of the hunting competition. As far as she's concerned, it's a draw between both sides. Neither Neverwinter nor the Witches of Sleeping Island managed to win outright. Though if Roland insists on counting Sister Leaf as part of Neverwinter's team, then Tilly wouldn't be able to recognize his victory. Not surprisingly, Roland concedes that it's indeed a draw. That said, instead of calling it a draw, he suggests they call it a victory for both parties. While she's here, he also plans to set up a trust fund, using 30% of the profits from Turbulent Drink to create a reward system for major contributors in Neverwinter City, both witches and mortals included. He believes that Tilly will stay in Neverwinter, whether at the Witch Union building or with the Sleeping Island immigrants. He doesn't mind whichever choice she makes. But Tilly objects politely. They had agreed on 50% of the profits, not 30%. Still, she's done her homework and acknowledges that even just 30% is a staggering amount. Roland then reveals his planned expenditures, which include salaries, witch residences, and essential utilities. He intends to invest the majority of the funds where they're needed most. If Tilly needs some of the funds, he's willing to make adjustments. She agrees to the terms and conditions. Roland then reveals his plan to bring the southern territories under Grey Castle's control. The culture of the Sand Dwellers is vastly different from the other 4 kingdoms. He wants Tilly's witches to assist in this endeavor. Tilly acknowledges this, but isn't sure why he's interested in the desert. No one has ever cared about that land since Grey Castle was founded. Well, it might seem barren and worthless, but it holds a treasure that could outshine everything else. He points to a specific location on the map where natural fires have been burning for decades, and where the land is rich in salt, clear signs that valuable resources are buried there. If his guess is correct, then the southernmost region needs to be Neverwinter's next step in development. Tilly acknowledges this and decides to talk to Ash about possibly going. Then, Echo enters Roland's room, looking disappointed. Her worries become clear when it's revealed that Roland plans to send her back south. However, he only wants her to return so they can govern the region more effectively in the future. The key to this plan is that Roland needs her to issue a divine challenge to the tribes there, as she has the privilege to do so. Once the First Army takes control of Iron Sand City, Roland hopes she can act as his representative, and he already has the perfect plan to convince the Sand Tribes. Eventually, Echo formally pledges her loyalty. The scene then shifts to a demon-infested land. Deep within we see the Tequila Witches who are possessing the bodies of devils. They seem convinced that the beasts from the Badlands are about to invade their territory, leaving them with no choice but to fight. One of the witches asks Celine how much longer it will take for the divine apparatus to be completed. Celine estimates about 60 minutes. While Area 43 has just been repaired, Lady Eleanor still needs time to calculate the core. One of the witches, currently inhabiting a divine soldier's body, assures the others that they don't have to push themselves too hard. It won't take long for the enemy to get here, and the larger hybrids will get stuck outside the entrance. She's confident they can handle the smaller demons. Suddenly, the monsters infiltrate their turf, and their target is the magic core. From what I can understand, these monsters are being drawn to the magic core or something related to it. They all begin attacking the witch who is trying to protect the relic and the magic stone. By the way, that relic they are talking about must be the red jewel they snagged from the church. I might be wrong, but that's the closest guess. And this is likely why these monsters are getting attracted to the crystal. The one protecting the stone is Celine. It turns out that Celine is the most capable witch who has researched the magic core the most. If anything happens to her, it will take a very long time before they can activate the relic again. The other witches follow suit, ripping the monsters apart to protect Celine. One of the concerned witches, Pasha, walks towards Celine, asking if she is all right. Celine responds affirmatively. She has only sustained light wounds on her tentacles. Nothing major, but it still hurts. Hearing this, the other witches feel jealous of Celine because she seems to be the only one among them who can feel pain. After a lot of back and forth, they all go to separate locations to defend each entrance. Finally, Celine delivers good news. Her calculations on the core are complete, and it has been calibrated to destroy all alien life forms. One of the witches then climbs up to the magic relic and activates it. As soon as it is activated, the energy waves obliterate all the monsters in the surrounding area. While the threat has been neutralized, a few witches in the divine soldiers' bodies have been gravely injured. But Pasha is relieved that everyone is alive. You see, over the past centuries, the number of witches in their group hasn't grown, so they have developed deep bonds with each other. Every witch's life is equally important, so she is glad they didn't lose a single one. Pasha then uses a magic trick she has up her sleeve and transfers one of the gravely injured witches into the body of another monster. For now, there won't be any large attacks since all the demons in the maze have been wiped out. Not even the flying demons outside were spared. However, Celine has some bad news. 2 components of the relic were damaged. It's most likely because they rushed the construction of the new core. So, for the coming week, they won't be getting any protection from the relic. Hearing this, Pasha raises a valid concern. If using the relic at a lower level is already causing damage, then that means the Chosen One would only be able to use it once. Celine reveals that this problem can be solved with some high-quality magical materials. The ones they salvaged from the ruins are just a few fragile bone artifacts. It's normal that they can't meet the core's demands. After all, the core is akin to something crafted by the gods themselves. But if they manage to acquire the proper relics, they won't need to fix it every time they test it. Suddenly, the illusion crystal begins to react. It looks like they are receiving a signal from Phyllis. She has shattered her crystal. The transmission is coming from the southwest, most likely in the Grey Castle Kingdom, near the entrance to the Fertile Land. Pasha realizes that it's coming from the western region of Grey Castle, which means Phyllis has reached her destination. However, Pasha still doesn't know why Phyllis crushed the crystal. Eventually, Pasha decides to follow their original plan. After all, they can't just abandon Phyllis. She is one of the last survivors of Tequila. The scene finally cuts back to Neverwinter. Wendy officially welcomes the 3 witches who are ready to sign their contract papers. They are requested to read the pledge on the back of the contract and sign their names. Afterwards, they will be officially recognized as part of the Witch Union. Emmy is confused about why they are given the opportunity to join even before having their abilities tested. Wendy assures her that there is no rush. The test usually happens after the contract signing. If they have any questions about the contract's contents, they are free to ask now or discuss it among themselves. As they read through the contract papers, Emmy and Hiro are absolutely shocked to learn that they will receive a golden royal every month for their services. Furthermore, there are other perks that seem too good to be true. Eventually, they all sign their contract papers. Now that they are done, Wendy decides to test their abilities. First is Annie, who literally melts metal with the heat of her hands. Wendy is overjoyed to see such an amazing ability. The manufacturing factories in the industrial district will be ecstatic to have her help. But Annie isn't sure if she can be useful, as she can't control the temperature unless she is in direct contact with an object. Wendy reassures her that there must be many applications for her ability. Industries that require smelting or chemistry labs would consider her a cherished treasure. Then Emmy steps forward, eager to demonstrate her abilities and prove her worth. But Wendy stops her. Since Emmy's ability revolves around healing, Wendy doesn't want her to get hurt unnecessarily. She also doesn't need to test Hiro's ability to transfer sickness. Wendy has already decided to send both of them to the medical department. Now, it's Blade's turn to demonstrate her abilities. As soon as she activates her power, she transforms into a black dagger. Wendy is astonished to see such a bizarre ability. Annie elaborates further that Blade can't hear anyone once she is in this state. As Wendy wields the dagger, Blade's voice echoes in her mind. Blade reveals that she can imbue her wielder with immense power. However, she admits that her health has never been the best since childhood, limiting her strength. Because of this, she is uncertain if she would be of much help to the Witch Union. Wendy then asks how long Blade can maintain her current form. Blade responds that she can stay like this indefinitely. Wendy begins to ponder, comparing Blade's ability to Maggie's transformation magic. Seeing through Wendy's eyes, she also takes notice of Wendy's generous figure, which embarrasses Wendy to the point that she immediately throws the dagger away. Shaking off the moment, Wendy then questions Annie about Blade's unusual powers, wondering if anyone can wield her. Annie explains that even ordinary people can receive Blade's power as long as Blade is willing. In her normal state, she is nothing more than a tough knife. However, when wielded by a witch, she can unleash her full potential. Unlike simply linking minds, which only allows her to communicate, true synchronization requires the wielder's focus. If the wielder loses concentration, Blade will be unable to sense their emotions. Curious, Wendy picks up the dagger again. Blade immediately apologizes, promising not to ask any more irrelevant questions. Wendy, however, assures her that it's fine. She is more interested in what Blade experienced while lying on the ground. Blade explains that it was like being submerged in complete darkness. She couldn't see, hear, or feel anything, as if floating in a void. Feeling guilty, Wendy apologizes and promises not to carelessly toss her aside again. Returning to the main topic, Wendy wants to understand why only witches can activate Blade's true powers. Blade then explains that remaining in her dagger form without magical reinforcement causes her to chip and wear down. However, a witch can channel magic through her, enhancing her sharpness and increasing her attack range. With the right wielder, she can even strike an enemy without physical contact. Testing this, Wendy channels her magic and swings the dagger. Instantly, a slicing wind is produced. The resulting air slash is a direct reflection of her magical affinity. Seeing the potential of such a mysterious ability, Wendy decides that Roland should be the one to analyze it further. Cut to Roland. Suddenly, Agatha barges into his office with urgent news regarding the witches of Tequila. Back to the Tequila witches. The Tequila witches have finally completed the transmission setup and are ready to connect with Phyllis. Pasha fears that if mortals are on the other end of the transmission, they will be horrified by the sight of their monstrous forms. She is convinced that Phyllis must have been captured by the mortal king and forced to set up the transmission. Finally, the transmission connects, revealing Phyllis, along with Agatha. Phyllis is immediately shocked by the sight of demon corpses littered behind her comrades, leading her to assume their turf had been attacked. Meanwhile, the Tequila witches are equally astonished that Phyllis does not appear to be imprisoned after all. As they exchange information, they take notice of Agatha. Though she looks familiar, it takes them a moment to realize the truth. She is indeed Agatha. This revelation is a shock to Celine, and the Divine Punishment witches are equally bewildered. They cannot comprehend how she not only survived the devils, but also endured 4 centuries without aging. Their confusion fades once Phyllis explains that Agatha had been trapped in an ice coffin. Pasha suddenly becomes certain that Agatha must be the chosen one. However, before Phyllis explains further, she requests Agatha to let her speak privately with the Tequila witches. Agatha, understanding her intent, quietly leaves the room. Phyllis then reveals a shocking truth. She has indeed found the chosen one. However, that chosen one is not a witch but a mortal king. The Tequila witches are utterly dumbfounded. How could a mere mortal possibly communicate with the gods? Phyllis admits that she also struggled to believe it at first, but after witnessing it firsthand, she can no longer deny the truth. She explains that the rainbow stone could barely withstand the overwhelming radiance emanating from him, and it was far beyond anything Pasha had described. With a look of disbelief, Pasha asks if the king possesses magic. Phyllis confirms that while he cannot activate the relic himself, he has vowed to fight alongside them to defeat the devils. His weapons are incredibly destructive, and she still cannot comprehend how they function. Agatha, however, expresses confidence in him. She believes that given 2 or 3 years, Neverwinter's development will be enough to stop the devils at the mountain wall. This revelation shocks the Tequila witches even further. To think that Agatha of all people is now working alongside a mortal king. Pasha remains skeptical. Given humanity's history with divine wars, she questions whether mortals can be relied upon. If the war drags on for 20 or 30 years, she is uncertain how the mortal king could sustain such a prolonged fight. Eventually, they decide to meet the king in person. When Roland enters the room, he is immediately taken aback by Pasha's monstrous form. Sensing his reaction, Pasha quickly apologizes for frightening him and formally introduces herself as one of the last survivors of Tequila. She assumes that Phyllis has already informed him about their situation. However, rather than reacting in fear, Roland appears fascinated. The entire exchange reminds him of a video call. Pasha, startled by his lack of fear, wonders why he is so composed. Little does she know, Roland has seen far too many Hollywood movies. At this point, there is nothing left that could possibly scare him. They then get back to business. Pasha warns that the red moon is approaching and time is running out. Rather than withholding information, she wishes to establish open and honest communication. Roland agrees. There is no point in avoiding the real issues. One thing is clear, that both sides share the same goal, the eradication of the devils. Pasha then reveals that Phyllis's original mission was to establish contact with the king. Initially, the witches had planned to operate from the shadows, searching for the chosen one while manipulating mortals behind the scenes. The auction house in the Kingdom of Dawn was one such method. However, the fall of the church provided Pasha with an opportunity to step into the light and unite all witches. According to her research, the largest existing witch organization is located in the Slumber Islands. Since its leader is the king's sister, and since Grey Castle was responsible for defeating the church, she determined that this was the best place to begin their search for the chosen one. Still, she never expected Phyllis to align with the king so quickly. Originally, she estimated it would take another 2 to 3 years to reach this point. Roland, however, is pleased that they managed to save so much time. He firmly believes that as long as mortals and witches can set aside their differences and work together, victory is within reach. If necessary, he is even willing to help find the chosen one. After all, having another powerful weapon against the devils can only be beneficial. Now that they intend to cooperate, Roland wishes to gain a better understanding of the Tequila witches. There is one mystery that has been bothering him. From what Phyllis told him about Tequila's buried history, he remains confused about one crucial detail. He wants to know what exactly was found in the ruins that split Tequila and Comet City into two factions, ultimately leading to the collapse of their entire alliance. Before Pasha can answer, the other witches protest, urging her to reconsider. They have sacrificed too much to reach this point. However, Pasha believes that because of those sacrifices, they must not let their efforts go to waste. She acknowledges that this information is one of Tequila's most highly classified secrets. However, it is no longer something that should remain hidden. And so, she finally reveals the truth. It was not they who discovered the ruins. Rather, it was the ruins that discovered them. What they encountered was not merely an ancient site, but a civilization, one that had long since vanished beneath the earth. Of course, Roland's curiosity is piqued at the mention of an underground civilization. Pasha further reveals that back then, humanity had not realized this fact, and had no intention of communicating with them either. Since there was a sky-earth difference between their appearances, they started treating them as a different breed of devils. This is why historical records tell a very different story. It was then that the Scholarly Guild found a way to preserve souls from the stone tablets the underground civilization had passed down, verifying it through an uncharted primeval vessel. From that point on, the top 3 seats in the Alliance began researching divine punishment warriors. Hearing this, Agatha admits she had no idea this was happening. Pasha, on the other hand, explains that the process of soul transfer was the most closely guarded secret in the Alliance, so exclusive that even witches being used as resources to create divine punishment warriors was more widely known. Only the top 3 seats and a few upper-level members knew about it, and Pasha only discovered the truth after Tequila had fallen, which explains why Agatha had no knowledge of it. After absorbing the lore, Roland realizes that it was Natalia who supported the divine punishment warrior plan in the beginning. Furthermore, he wants to know about the primeval vessel. Pasha reveals that Natalia had no choice. As for Roland's second question, the ugly body in front of them is clear proof of the underground civilization's existence. And this body is the very thing they call primeval vessel. The only thing she can say right now is that this civilization's ruins are just like described in Tombstone. The story is a long one, so they better strap in if they don't want to miss a single detail. The stone tablets reveal that this lost civilization left behind a city in the mountains. The Scholarly Guild searched for a long time but found nothing. However, they eventually realized that since the ancient civilization often traveled underground, it was possible the city also existed beneath the surface. Expanding their search range, the witches finally discovered the vast city. It was built on 4 levels, covering an area nearly half the size of Tequila. Each level had countless tunnels and pathways, making it more complex to navigate than any maze. So the Scholarly Guild designated it as the Maze Ruins. However, before they could investigate further, Tequila fell to the devils, and everyone was running for their lives. After suffering many losses, they finally reached the maze. Originally, the Alliance planned to take the primeval vessels from the ruins, and then build a new holy city on the Hermes Plains. Meanwhile, Pasha had intended to establish a new order along the eastern seaboard. But what happened next was something no one expected. The scholarly guild discovered that the maze ruins were incredibly well preserved, practically a brand new city. Besides the primeval vessels, they found many other unimaginable secrets hidden in the lower levels of the ruins. Most importantly, they uncovered three key things. The magic core, the central vessels, records of the lost civilization. That's when they had realized that this civilization had wanted the witches to find this place as early as the First Divine War. The maze ruins were specifically prepared for them to discover. Upon hearing the lore, Tilly asks why the lost civilization would want that. Roland immediately understands, it's revenge. That civilization wanted the people above ground to destroy the devils that drove them to extinction. Though this was only Lady Natalia's hypothesis, the civilization had never explicitly stated anything of the sort. Perhaps they simply wanted their knowledge to be passed down. In the end, the scholarly guild found extensive research on magic and gods. To make things easier, most of the theories were recorded as drawings on stone tablets. The information about the magic core was what ultimately led Lady Alice to break away from the Queen of Comet City. The most important detail in the drawings was this: magic has infinite possibilities, and pursuing godhood is the key to harnessing it. Roland then asks about the magic core, wondering if it's related to the divine relic. Pasha explains that they can think of the core as an artificial magic vortex. It isn't limited by a witch's abilities and can change form into anything. This immensely powerful tool completely changed the Alliance. For example, the illusion device they are using right now is actually a small magic core. It can perform other functions when needed. As for the divine relic, it is the largest magic core in the ruins. Now everything clicks for Roland. Compared to witches, who are restricted by their potential at birth, magic cores are ultimately superior in versatility. And most importantly, their range isn't limited to just 5 meters. Prince Roland is beyond excited at the discovery of these core stones. After all, they would improve everything from production to crafting weapons for combat. Pasha further reveals that this is just one of the most basic uses, similar to the difference between a witch's initial maturity and a high-tier awakening. The stone tablets prophesied that if they continued refining their understanding of magic, one day they would be no different from gods. But they don't have the luxury of time. They have no idea whether it will take them 100 years or 1,000 to reach that point. Their biggest problem is that they can't find the right path, and their research has reached a dead end. The knowledge on the stone tablets is incredibly limited. If the tequila witches want to go further, they would have to follow the instructions and merge themselves with the central vessel. Only then would they be able to understand the lost civilization's language and decipher their complex data and theories. But they had no time, and even figuring this out could have taken at least 3 years. Many mortals who had originally joined them decided they wanted no part in it. The tequila witches didn't know how many witches were needed to activate the central vessel, so there was no room for error. At the time, their resources were only enough to focus on research, and if things continued the way they were, the Alliance's plans to restore order would fall apart. Most importantly, Lady Alice's plan to create the Divine Punishment Army directly conflicted with the ancient civilization's recorded values. For a witch to abandon her body and become a divine punishment warrior meant no chance of advancing their magic. And so, the witches would lose their connection to God. After hearing all this, Roland once again begins to piece things together. When the Divine Punishment Army was no longer the only solution to defeat the devils, some of the witches fought back against Alice, not wanting to sacrifice their brethren as resources. This finally connects with what Roland has learned from the Church. It seems the battle of faith mentioned in the Church's records may have been this clash of ideologies. And they hid the truth by creating an illusion of victory. Besides their conflicting beliefs, the root cause behind this conflict was that the upper levels of the Alliance knew that neither plan was guaranteed to defeat the devils. It was true that the Comet Queen's plan for a hibernating Divine Punishment Army promised 3,000 or 4,000 super soldiers ready for the next Divine War. But the flaw was that if the army suffered heavy losses, there would be no way to replenish their numbers quickly enough. An army of super soldiers might be able to stop the devils for many decades, or even take back the ruins of Tequila, but it would not be feasible to take back the entire Dawn continent. The plan for the Chosen One was even weaker, as it entirely depended on luck. Although failure would be common, the tablets foretold that if they succeeded, they would both win the war and become closer to God. One plan focused on the present, while the other gambled on the future. Roland then inquires if her group defeated Comet City in the end. Pasha reveals that there was no true winner in the internal conflict. When both sides lost their transcendent leaders, Lady Eleanor took a stand. To stop the fighting, she threw herself into the central vessel and became the first merged witch. Basically, the Union lost all 3 transcendent witches in this internal struggle, and it was also the end of the 3-chief system. As a result, the ruins of the maze became an indispensable part of the Union. Both sides decided to reach an agreement. The survivors of Tequila stayed in the ruins, studying the magic core, while those from Comet City went to Hermes and built a new holy city there. Since the primeval vessel was extremely limited, in order to ensure they had enough manpower, the witches of Comet City that became the church also agreed to offer a certain number of bodies for divine punishment soldiers in the next 100 years. When the 100 years are up and nothing promising or any evidence of the chosen one is found, the church would have the right to take back all of the research results in the ruins, including the equipment used to contain the souls and primeval vessels. By then, the witches of Comet City would arrive with the divine punishment warriors, and if the witches in the maze ruins turned away from their promise, they would show no mercy. Before she explains further, Roland interrupts her and questions why the church never came back looking for them, not even once in the past 400 years. To which Pasha reveals that for a very long time, the witches of the maze ruins didn't have the ability to find out what was happening outside. The primeval vessels couldn't stay under the sun for too long, and the witches who switched souls needed time to adjust to their new bodies. Hence, they didn't know the situation in Hermes. Only later did the witches of the maze ruins realize that the church was no longer following Lady Alice's will. Agatha knew there was definitely something suspicious regarding the church because Lady Alice would never have pushed things this far. The other witches agree. Roland then questions Pasha about the difference between the central vessel and the primeval vessel, to which Lady Pasha reveals that primeval vessels are all shells. The body of the disappearing civilization is extremely weak, meaning it had no choice but to reside in a shell. Celine continues the conversation by revealing that these shells possess immortality, though the articles never went into detail about why. Right now, based on what they know, the primeval vessel is the most common type of shell. The central vessel is similar to the primeval vessel in shape, but it stores many unconscious memories within. She may see it as a primeval vessel that is often used but has lost its consciousness. Only by merging these memories together will they be able to read the records and research results left behind. Roland, out of curiosity, questions Celine about her introduction, and the girl promptly gives her name. She further reveals that she once worked with Agatha. Well, it seems that Agatha doesn't remember her. Even if they both worked in the research tower, they might have been working on different levels. Though Agatha has heard that Celine was a very hard-working witch, always quiet and buried deep in research. Roland then questions Celine if the witches who merged are still alive. Pasha wouldn't call them alive. Other than Lady Eleanor and a dozen or so witches who were critically injured during the conflict, they merged another 36 volunteers. Only then did the central vessel awaken. Not everyone is willing to become a monster, or spend the rest of their lives trapped inside a cage that strips them of all senses. Unfortunately, the central vessel can't communicate with them effectively. It can only say yes or no. The questions must be simple to understand, and the more details in the question, the faster it can answer. If the witches of the maze ruins hadn't acquired the central vessel, fixing or altering the magic core would have been impossible. It's essentially a combination of all the tequila witches' willpower, and the more witches that merge with it, the faster its reaction becomes. For Celine, accompanying Lady Eleanor was the last thing they could do to contribute to the search for magic power. From what Roland can understand, the central vessel is basically like a computer that gives you an answer if you ask it about something. Though Roland hasn't figured out if, given the right variables and conditions, it could solve equations or perform complex calculations by itself. Roland is looking forward to bringing the central vessel back to Neverwinter and learning more about it. But he doesn't know if this is the best time to suggest something like this. So he decides to take it slow and mention it when they reach the negotiating stage. Back to the main topic. While Roland understands most of the situation, he still has one question. Be it the maze ruins, the church, or the ancient texts passed down through generations, all of them mention the divine will. Roland has also heard that beneath the plateaus of Hermes lies a mysterious holy temple, which contains a secret room that only the Pope can enter. By standing in that room, one is able to feel the presence of God. So, basically, Roland wants to understand what this divine will is. By the term divine will, Roland means the will of God. Pasha is amazed that Roland learned this information before them. This just proves that Phyllis wasn't lying when she said Roland knows a lot. She even reveals that concerning the divine will, she only learned about it after the destruction of Tequila, meaning even Agatha didn't know about it. Well, Roland reminds her that the church was defeated by him. So all the witches responsible for managing the holy city of Hermes are currently imprisoned in the city of Neverwinter. Pasha is ready to tell him the secret about the divine will, though she wants Roland to keep it a secret. This also applies to everyone else present here. If this information gets leaked, she's afraid it will only bring disadvantages in the third battle of the divine will. She then reveals that the divine will is a tangible thing. It's like a transparent stone of divine judgment, sharp and slim like a spindle, but it doesn't stop magic in any way, nor does it have any special use. However, if you open your heart while you're close to it, you can vividly sense the calling from God and see some fascinating visions. For instance, you might see an extremely spacious hall, a red moon hanging above your head, and 4 huge paintings. Adding to the mystery, the paintings are alive and constantly changing. Tilly questions the meaning behind the existence of these pictures. Well, that question has troubled everyone for thousands of years, and the Quest Society has been desperately searching for answers, but none have been found. They've only managed to confirm this after the articles within the maze ruins were deciphered. God showed the humans, devils, unknown enemies, and the underground civilization, and the shape of the divine will also supported this. It wasn't a complete concealed body but a quarter of a whole, hence they call it a god's artifact. 4 paintings and a fourth of an artifact. Roland questions what he can understand. She's saying that each civilization shown in the paintings has an artifact similar to this one. Pasha reveals that not all of them have it because the underground civilization has already lost its share of the divine will. Thus, one of the paintings has become completely black. She believes this happened just as the first battle of the divine will ended. According to statements in the articles and records passed down by the Alliance, she has arrived at a theory that the underground civilization was removed from the battle of the divine will forever. From this, Roland understands that the underground civilization and the devils were both fighting to get each other's artifact. And since the underground civilization lost, it means their artifact is now in the hands of their enemy. Tilly then asks a question that Roland was curious about as well. What will happen if they manage to collect all 4 artifacts? She wonders if God has given any hints. To which Pasha sadly reveals that nobody knows the answer because God has never answered their calls. God does not love the people, he only smiles at the victors. Of course, this just doesn't make sense to Wendy. Why would civilizations fight each other for centuries without any true purpose? Pasha reveals that there is a passage within the articles that has been quite hard for her to understand, so she's thinking maybe it will answer their question. The passage goes like, "We are all children of God, but only a few can see the light. From the moment one senses magic, they are bound to live an extraordinary life. Birds were not always birds, and we, in this case the underground civilization, were not always we. The battle has continued for centuries. To arrive at where they are today is already an achievement. Killing allows the living to live, while competition brings the living eternity." And the last line says that everyone is children of God. The line before this one catches Roland's attention, and he wants Pasha to repeat it. So she does. The battle has continued for centuries, and to arrive at where they are right now is already an achievement. What Roland understands is that this phrase sounds like a description of evolution. From ignorance to civilization, the species strong enough to survive replace the weaker ones, and the description of the underground civilization seems to be describing precisely that. If Roland thinks about it, these 4 civilizations seem different, but they all have one thing in common. They can all use magic. Humans are able to give birth to witches who possess magic, while devils and the eliminated civilization are more skilled in its use. Based on this logic, the other unknown opponent should also have the ability to manipulate magic. This aligns with the initial statement. We are all children of God. It must be referring to all the species that have this extraordinary ability. With this theory in mind, maybe the battles of the divine will are not about protecting or fighting for the divine will. Instead, they could just be a way to speed up evolution. Or should Roland say this is the law of the magical world? This is why the underground civilization mentioned that being close to the road of God is equivalent to rising through the stairs of magic. As Roland gets lost in thought, Pasha can sense his thoughts are all tangled up. Roland is surprised that she can see what he's thinking, to which she claims that she can only do it when Roland himself is willing to communicate with his thoughts, just like what she's doing to him now. She questions him if he would like to try, as it will speed up communication immensely. But of course, Roland doesn't want her to see the jumble of thoughts he's accumulated after devouring so many memories, so he passes on her request, feeling more comfortable expressing his ideas with his throat and tongue. Back to the main topic. Roland wants to know if the church had been protecting that artifact. Pasha responds positively, claiming that finding a place to bury the artifact is nothing but self-deception. It won't stop the War of Divine Will from happening. Hence, the artifact has always been guarded by a strong witch organization. The existence of the artifact is also the reason behind the months of demons and beasts attacking Hermes like crazy. After learning about Comet City's defeat, they took back the artifact immediately. Right now, it is under her protection. Seeing the massive pile of dead monsters, Wendy gasps and asks, how in the hell were they able to defend against so many monsters? Pasha reveals that the divine relic is capable of stripping one's magic powers, and without the support of magic, those monsters died soon enough. However, it can only become a formidable weapon after being activated by the Chosen One. Roland is curious to learn if the destructive power doesn't affect normal humans. Or can the Divine Stone nullify the effects of this relic? Pasha responds with a no. After all, it's something above magic, and the Shield of Divine Stones is useless against it. It looks like Roland has finally developed a little bit of intuition regarding their current situation. First of all, the devils are their enemies, and that should go without saying. With more people comes more power, and working together, uniting everyone to fight on the same side during the battle, is extremely important. Pasha agrees with this. The Witches of May's Ruins are not asking for anything more than that. They only wish for Roland to continue taking in more witches and allow Phyllis to continue searching for the Chosen One. She plans to dispatch another Witch of Divine Judgment to bring Roland a new rainbow magic stone. Roland then suggests she consider living closer to the western region, likely in the western mountain ranges of the city of Neverwinter. Others are shocked by his proposition because of the threat of beasts. Roland believes they should not be the only ones guarding the artifact. After all, if anything were to happen, they'd be back to square one. Attracting evil beasts is just a small thing. Now that they are missing the defense line of Hermes, if the devils decide to attack, they can easily take that artifact for themselves. But Celine believes that defending against devils is just as difficult as defending against evil beasts. Roland reminds her that there is a big difference. The devils are much more powerful and cunning, and you can tell from the bodies that they once got close to the core center. If Roland is right, the divine relic is not far from the illusion stone. So, if they encounter spear-throwing mad devils, there's a chance of complete destruction of the core. To avoid the worst-case scenario, he suggests they settle closer to the western mountains and the fertile fields. Roland will open up a path from the rear that takes them straight to the mountain road, and that way, even if the relic is in immense danger, the city of Neverwinter can always lend a helping hand. He reminds them that trust is the basis of cooperation, and they can only build trust by placing the artifact in an area both sides believe to be safe. Pasha acknowledges this and asks for some time before making her final judgment. As the Maze Ruins group discusses among themselves, Roland notices that they are actually communicating through telepathy. After a short interval, Pasha finally seems ready to give her final verdict. But before she says anything, she wants to ask a question. If she were to work together as Roland suggested, protect the divine will and work as one, then who will lead everyone? Since one wrong move can put everyone's life at stake, she would like to consider all aspects. Hence, she suggests creating an alliance. As they fight together, the commands will be given by the most powerful few after they've arrived at an appropriate solution. This way, they can avoid making wrong judgments while ensuring that everyone's benefits are taken into account. While this sounds like the three-party system that the Alliance has, Pasha believes that having 3 representatives is a suitable number. It allows for a balance of opinions while ensuring efficiency. Of course, given that they have 4 kings and various witch organizations, they don't have to follow the number 3. For instance, the Alliance started with 11 leaders of the Round Table who planned all battles. While Roland acknowledges and respects Pasha's input, he makes it clear that there will be no need for 3 leaders. Only he will be enough. This is the only way to maintain efficiency. Of course, everyone in the meeting is shocked to hear this. Being humble is a virtue, but now is definitely not the time for that. While having 3 leaders, like in an alliance, may have its perks, it's not good for Roland's plans. Only Roland knows what they need if they want to industrialize. He is the only person in this world who understands how to make every region shine with its full potential. Fighting together is a good way to deal with the devils, but Roland never asked them to join him from the very beginning. Moving to the western region is just a basic show of trust. Furthermore, Roland wants her to witness that what he claims are not just verbal promises. Pasha is unsure what Roland wants them to see. Well, Roland wants her to see the determination and power the city of Neverwinter possesses to defeat the devils. He doesn't want her to forget the organizations that have joined or are yet to join them, and he wants her to understand their situation as well. After she has a general idea of what to expect, she can then make her choice. Even if she finds herself unable to make a decision, they can still collaborate in the most basic ways, like exchanging crucial knowledge to help each other. Pasha then questions if Roland doesn't wish to take the artifact and the magic core as well, to which Roland claims that he never planned to rely on things from the ruins to defeat the devils. As for the divine artifact, as long as it's placed somewhere both parties can ensure its safety, he has no objection. Just like he said before, ensuring the safety of the artifact is the first step to trusting each other. As for everything else, time will tell what they can do. This is when Celine speaks up. She is forced to admit that Roland is extraordinary for a mortal, though she finds it foolish that he plans to be the sole leader, with no room for backup plans. What if the battle of divine will lasts for decades and Roland is no longer at his prime? She wants to confirm if his descendants would be able to lead everyone just like he is doing. To solve this problem, only an alliance could help them avoid such possibilities. Roland believes that this is not something they should be worried about. After all, she can't be so sure he'll let the devils last that long. Furthermore, he's sure his lifespan is longer than all of theirs combined. He has fought with some witches and earned himself an old battlefield, so he can even devour the lifespan and power of other people. Of course, this doesn't make sense to Pasha. It looks like Roland himself is not entirely certain about the bold claims he just made. He just wants to appear impressive and tough, so he said it. And it seems like it's working. Instead of trying to convince them that his descendants will always hold the same determination and beliefs through some unknown system, he would rather explain everything with the excuse of some strange ability. After the Ruin Witches have a deep conversation among themselves, they are finally ready to migrate to the Western Mountains. However, there are many things that need to be transported from the ruins. A random cave won't be enough to hold them all. They will need at least a month for this entire process. Furthermore, time is required to build a lab and dungeon in the Western Mountain ranges. So, Pasha hopes that Roland can provide them with the necessary materials. Roland is not sure what Pasha has planned. Originally, he planned to ask Lotus to connect all the caves together using tunnels, thinking that a simple shelter for them would be enough. But they seem to be better engineers than he initially thought. They plan to create a brand new palace within the rocks. This is when Pasha reveals that devouring worms will do the trick. It has a large shell that is similar to the Badland beast, and there happens to be one in the ruins. She claims to have used the same type of shell to sneak into the City of Glow within the Kingdom of Dawn. Of course, the description she provides sounds quite familiar to Roland. Agatha doesn't waste a second and questions her if Pasha was responsible for infiltrating the Devil's Base and devouring the Blackstone Tower. Well, it looks like Pasha has no clue about it. Roland then gestures to Sister Scroll, and she lays out the map. He finally decides to further brief Pasha about the events in the Snowy Mountains. So, in a matter of minutes, Roland explains everything, like how they encountered the devil camps, and how that very camp got devoured by the same worm. The tracks of these two worm monsters were all heading towards the Snowy Mountains, and their sizes are also much bigger than Badland beasts. Seeing the illustration in Scroll's hand, Pasha confirms that this is indeed a devouring worm. She further reveals that the ruins of an underground civilization lie beneath the Snowy Mountains. It's stated in the records that this civilization once dominated the entire land of Dawn. Where there are mountains, there are traces of the worms. You can tell from the millions of tunnels within the mountains that the records left by this old civilization are not exaggerations. However, Pasha confirms that the underground civilization was destroyed, and these worms left by that civilization are merely shells, similar to the primeval vessels. If a soul enters the shell, the worms can be manipulated. It looks like the worms were active twice. The first time, they attacked Agatha's research tower, and the second time, they attacked the Devil's Base. The only possibility here is an unknown species that has never shown itself. There is a possibility that this mysterious civilization found the ruins and some worm shells in the Snowy Mountains and transferred souls into those shells. If this is the case, it wouldn't be a big problem. But what if there is a magic core and a central vessel within the ruins? Would they suddenly gain a lot of knowledge in magic and create a divine relic that targets witches? According to the records, the bigger the mountain ranges, the greater the possibility of a huge underground civilization. The Snowy Mountains are not as large as the Impassable Mountain Range or the Dragonspine Mountains, but their main peak is the highest in this region. If there is a large number of shells there, Roland wants to act before it's too late. Pasha also wants Roland to help them explore this peak. If there are functioning relics and the vessels mentioned in the records, it will be extremely troublesome if the enemies get their hands on them. Roland admits that their worries are valid, and he has always wanted to explore the Snowy Mountains in the west. However, due to a lack of transport equipment and a reluctance to send the witches into danger alone, the exploration was delayed. If they can use the devouring worms, it might be a good opportunity. In this case, Pasha decides to start migrating immediately. Roland hopes this is just the beginning of their cooperation, so he extends his hand for a handshake. However, since Pasha doesn't understand the concept of a handshake, he explains that a handshake means the two parties have reached a consensus. Pasha in turn extends her tentacle. As Roland shakes hands with her, he feels a pang of sadness that Soraya is not here to witness this crucial moment. This will definitely go down in the annals of history. Moving on, since there are chances that every single mountain might be an underground civilization, Roland wants to know about the mountain ranges under the sea. According to the records, the worms were only active within the Land of Dawn, and there are no traces of them within the sea. After all, vessels are often very large and heavy, and they are not made to move in water. After confirming this much, Roland deduces that the suspicious pointed tower from the sea and the telescope have nothing to do with them. However, thinking about the old telescope, always pointing towards the huge stone gate and the piece of land that can only be accessed during high tide, Roland wants to figure out who that belongs to. Perhaps it's a third party that has been hiding in the dark. He hopes that Thunder will be able to find an answer. Later, Wendy comes to visit Scroll. As they settle into the room and enjoy some turbulent drinks, Wendy reflects on Roland's bold declaration about being the only leader. Before this, Roland was extremely approachable, but the witches always worried that he might be indecisive during critical times, or show some sort of weakness that a ruler shouldn't have. Now, it seems like he is even more outstanding than they expected. Not to mention, even though Roland is becoming more and more mature, he still treats the witches and common folks the same way as usual. It almost feels like second nature to him, which is especially abnormal for someone from the royal family. Wendy then reveals that she handed the results of the Wolfheart witches to Roland when the meeting ended. From this point onward, Roland will personally oversee how Blade's abilities can be utilized more efficiently. The reason being that weapons need to be carried by the owners personally at all times. But in that case, Broken Sword would limit freedom. Besides, the enemies won't always launch an attack during her working time, and her sword's aura is not as powerful as gunpowder. Hence, instead of treating her like a weapon, he wanted her to test her compatibility with every witch. Then she may decide who she finds interesting, and things can be taken from there. Instead of treating her like a weapon, he wanted her to test her compatibility with every witch. Then she may decide who she finds interesting, and things can be taken from there. Rather than objectifying witches based on their abilities, Roland seems to prioritize their feelings first. Perhaps that is why Nightingale trusts and supports him so much. Now that Wendy reflects back, she feels glad that she trusted Nightingale's judgment and left the association with her. Anyhow, the two ladies reminisce about the past and have a great time enjoying turbulent drinks. Meanwhile, Roland is also having fun time clapping his best girl. They are talking about the recent discoveries they've made. While Anna always knew that they were not the only civilization in this world, she never expected to discover a brand new civilization beneath the mountains, full of unknowns. Perhaps one day she's sure they will be able to step foot on that piece of land far away. Roland promises her that this day will come. However, Anna questions if he really believes in the existence of a god. The supposed god left them with artifacts and caused all the civilizations to fight against each other. This just makes her feel as if the god is looking down upon them. Roland asks her if she's feeling scared. But contrary to that, she claims to be feeling very fortunate. And the reason for her fortune is that they sent Roland to her. Let them clap each other. And we cut to the next day at the experimental facility. Lucia, Anna, and Roland are there. And it looks like they are working on making a tool that uses electromagnetism to transfer voices using electric currents. That tool is most definitely a telephone. While they are all talking about this nerdy stuff, Nightingale feels out of place as usual. She just disappears into her mist. Later, we get outside, where Roland is about to test the first prototype of this first-generation telephone. The call connects successfully on both ends, and they can hear the sound of the other person. Anna speaks from the other side, saying, "I love you," which causes Roland to blush on the other side. Nightingale, on the other hand, looks utterly heartbroken and devastated. Later, Nightingale returns to her room, hoping to drown herself in remorse with a turbulent drink. That's when Wendy suddenly pounces on her, excitedly asking how many years it's been since they became friends. Nightingale, a little unsure about Wendy's sudden behavior, admits it's been about 4 or 5 years. But more than anything, she just wants to know where her drink is. Instead of answering, Wendy keeps dodging the question, rambling about their long-lasting friendship. Eventually, Wendy confesses that she drank it, which of course explains why she was buttering Nightingale up. Wendy promises to make it up to her next month, while Nightingale, still sulking, decides to indulge in some dried fish, but only to realize that her pouch is empty. Of course, devastation hits her. At a time like this, only dried fish, ice cream bread, and that turbulent drink can bring her comfort. And now, they're all gone. The scene transitions to the southernmost region. The land is covered in sand, with only Silverstream Valley having some oases. Over 90% of the main population resides there. At the largest oasis stands Iron Sand City, the only city in the southernmost region. Iron Sand City is ruled by 6 great clans, but their positions aren't inherited. One can only earn a place among them through power and ability. Furthermore, they must accept any challengers. To prevent utter chaos, the clans established a system where individuals can fight for victory, known as the Holy Duel. And it seems Iron Axe has arrived, aiming to snag his positions as one of the clans first. The night is young as we cut to Skull Tavern. Inside, we meet a small clan's patriarch, Talim. One of his lackeys rushes in, informing him that there are visitors, one of whom looks very familiar. Talim orders his men to let them in, but reminds them to take their weapons and wear divine stones just in case. Finally, the unknown visitors step inside. And that visitor is none other than Iron Axe. Talim recognizes him instantly, and the feeling is mutual. Iron Axe hopes this bald bastard has figured out why he's here today. Talim, of course, already seems to know. The scene flashes back to the past, revealing that this very bastard was involved in Sister Echo's downfall. Yet, instead of being fazed, Talim smugly warns that the Iron Whip clan, Iron Axe's sworn enemy, is stronger than ever. But Iron Axe isn't intimidated. If anything, he's relieved. He was worried they'd been chased out of Iron Sand City by some other challenger or, worse, wiped out entirely. Talum scoffs, reminding him that confidence means nothing without strength. At the end of the day, Iron Axe is just digging his own grave. Even if a goddess was born within the Asha clan, they'd still struggle to match the Iron Whip clan. Those who were exiled are long dead, and to Talum, Iron Axe isn't even a threat worth considering. That's precisely why Iron Axe came to see this bald bastard. But something doesn't add up. 8 years ago, the Iron Whip clan was just as formidable as the Osha clan. As challengers, they had the chance to enter Iron Sand City. So why did they choose to become watchdogs instead? Only clans that secure their footing in one of the 4 oases surrounding Iron Sand City earn the right to challenge the 6 great clans. The younger clans constantly battle in these small oases, lands with no rules, no restrictions. That's why they're called the Lands of Blood. Watchdogs, on the other hand, are challengers who've given up the right to initiate holy duels. They act as shields for the top-ranked clans. Though they can't enter Iron Sand City, they enjoy comfortable lives with access to water and food. Iron Axe, however, promises that things can change. If Talum pledges his loyalty to Lady Drow Silvermoon, who is Sister Echo, he'll have the chance to touch the walls of Iron Sand City again. Talum bursts into laughter, not taking Iron Axe seriously. The idea that Iron Axe wants this little girl to become the new matriarch and initiate a holy duel is utterly hilarious. He has no intention of betraying his clan or fighting the watchdogs just so Iron Axe can enter the city. Instead, he issues a veiled threat, demanding something in exchange for keeping Lady Drow Silvermoon's whereabouts a secret. If Iron Axe doesn't pay up, Talum can sell the information to his clan and be handsomely rewarded. They'd love nothing more than to capture and torture a goddess from a past enemy clan. Before Talum gets too ahead of himself, Iron Axe tells him to calm down. He already knows what a coward this bastard is. He never expected Talum to fight the watchdogs in the first place. More importantly, Iron Axe didn't return just for revenge against the Iron Whip clan. He came back to challenge the 6 great clans and make the Asha clan the rulers of Iron Sand City. That bald bastard starts sweating. Iron Axe wants to defeat all 6 great clans and take over the city? Panicking, Talum raises his hand, signaling his men to attack. All his goons immediately lunge at Iron Axe. Too bad for them. They just stuck their hands in the devil's maw. The so-called Lady Drow Silvermoon accompanying Iron Axe turns out to be Ash, actually. With a single punch, she sends Talum's men flying out of the tavern window. Chaos erupts, and more thugs storm in through the front gate, only to become victims of Ash's wrath. The bald bastard is bewildered as to why this witch isn't being suppressed by the Stone of Divine Judgment. It seems Ash is using pure strength to handle these bastards. Iron Axe finally makes his move, forcing the bastard to surrender. With that, the fight is over, and the tavern is completely under their control. Iron Axe hopes that after this hard lesson, the bastard will finally talk. But Talum believes it doesn't matter whether he helps Iron Axe or not. They've already been exposed. The watchdogs in the city are backed by the Iron Whip and Cut Bone clans. Even if he gathers all his men, he believes fighting against the warriors of the larger clans would be impossible. It's in Iron Axe's best interest to leave now, before he dies unnecessarily. Iron Axe, however, makes it clear that he's not backing down. Besides, the watchdogs won't be a problem. Talum finally starts to understand the situation. He has a hunch that the only reason Iron Axe wants him is to challenge the great clans to holy duels. His power clearly comes from places beyond the southernmost region. Meanwhile, outside the main city's territory, we meet the First Army, who's finished setting up their cannons. Under the command of the platoon leader, the soldiers begin bombarding the enemy ahead. As the cannonballs hit, those poor souls caught in the firepower are torn apart. Talum, on the other hand, is absolutely stunned by the massacre. With no clue about firearms, he wonders if this is some sort of divine fire from the heavens. As far as he's concerned, there's no way this power belongs to Iron Axe. He's dying to know who Iron Axe serves. Iron Axe finally reveals that he serves a merciful ruler and is on a mission to bring peace and order to the Mojin people. But Iron Axe is also aware that lowlifes like Talum will never accept this new order. The Oases raised the people of the Sand Nation, but also imprisoned their thoughts. To survive, they started killing and harming each other. The oasis that should create life has been drenched in blood. As for the watchdogs, they were clearly created to protect the power of the great clans, and they caused the common folk to suffer in the desert. To Iron Axe, this is nothing but stupidity. Talum, however, reminds Iron Axe that he must be aware of the reasons they've been living this way, especially since he was born here. The oases can't contain everyone, so they must kill and steal. The Mojin people will never escape the desert unless they have the power to overthrow Grey Castle. Whether they choose to collaborate or surrender, only death awaits them. The Northerners will never trust them, and the Blackbone and Sandstone clans prove this point by teaming up with Garcia. To obtain fertile land, those two clans decided to serve Queen Garcia of Clearwater. But after all that, they got nothing. Rumor has it that they took some strange pills, and their bodies melted into nothing but mush. The land they were promised was nothing but an empty lie. Iron Axe admits he used to believe the Northerners would never trust them, but what he's seen so far tells a completely different story. Suddenly, the watchdogs from the city march toward the commotion caused by Iron Axe and Ash. Of course, all these guys are nothing more than vulnerable rats when faced with Roland's modern weapons. Once the cannon fire stops, all that's left are the remnants of the watchdogs. Talum is absolutely boggled by the sight. He thought there were supposed to be more than 2,000 of them, but not a single one remains. Iron Axe tells the bastard to just ask his clan members to put out the fire because the small oasis has finally been seized. Sister Echo makes her grand debut. As soon as Talum sees her, he bows his head in submission. In the name of 3 gods, he promises that he and his clan will serve her wholeheartedly. From this day forward, she will be the matriarch of the Osha clan. The scene transitions to Carl Bloodwhip, the patriarch of the Iron Whip clan. His blood boils when he learns what happened at the oasis. He calls the whole thing about divine fire complete nonsense. But his soldier confirms that he went to the camp at the oasis, and the reports seem to be true. After suffering the divine fire, the camp is in ruins, and black pits everywhere, bodies blown apart, plastered against the walls. It's as if a massive sandworm or burrowing scorpion attacked the camp and tore everything apart. All the soldiers in the camp perished, while the few who managed to escape tried to fight back, but they were defeated before they even saw the enemy. Carl is sure the idiots must have been ambushed and wiped out. To him, it's normal for watchdogs to be challenged, but it would be extremely unlikely for anyone to challenge the Iron Whip clan. He asks which clan these people belong to. The soldier reveals that they are from the Osha clan. The news shocks the hell out of this overconfident bastard. The soldier further confirms that the flags at the oasis are all showing the Osha clan symbol, and he even saw the Osha princess, who was once a slave, now standing in the flesh. She's become the new goddess and is gathering more members for her clan. Many Northerners have surrendered to her cause. All of this brutal truth is overwhelming for Carl. As far as he's concerned, goddesses are evil in the eyes of the Northerners, so how could a slave become a goddess and receive their support? It seems like this bastard isn't ready to give up yet. In his eyes, even if the Northerners have better weapons and more people, when it comes to duels, the Mojin people are the bravest warriors. He wants to show them what true despair looks like. Suddenly a soldier barges in and claims that the Osha clan has sent a gift. Later, when Carl goes to take a look, the gift box looks like a coffin. As the soldiers pry out the nails of this large coffin, they find another fancy coffin inside. Seeing this, Carl almost laughs. He was expecting something far scarier, like a head, an ear, or even human skin. After all, this is Iron Sand City. Anyhow, the bastard swings his axe, aiming to shatter the coffin into pieces. His hit lands, but instead of shattering, the coffin explodes, taking down everyone in the room. With that, the Iron Whip clan has been wiped out. We then cut back to the time when Iron Axe filled that coffin with white powder, flint rocks stuck to the edges, and a fuse connected to the lid. With the help of one of the witches, they made the coffin lightweight. Now, whether the coffin was opened by force or naturally, only thunder and flames awaited them. Once Talum learns how Iron Axe wiped out the Iron Whip clan without a duel, he questions the audacity of such an act. How could Iron Axe do this without a proper duel? Iron Axe then reveals that it was all Lubaka who tainted the name of the holy duel and disrespected the 3 gods. And as someone who doesn't even deserve to be a human, Lubaka doesn't deserve fairness either. For someone as despicable as him, there's no point in being cautious. He should just be crushed. But Talum questions if Lubaka hadn't opened the coffin or destroyed it, would it have been a failure for Iron Axe? Iron Axe knows Lubaka too well. The guy loves chaos and destruction. Murdering others is second nature to him. It's extremely easy to predict his reactions. That coffin was just a starter. Even if Lubaka manages to dodge this one, there are more gifts waiting for him. However, Iron Axe doesn't believe the 3 gods would protect traitors. Talum once again promises to follow the vow he made to the 3 gods, serving the Osha clan with all his heart. Through the listening sigil, Sister Echo delivers the transmission of her victory to Spear Passy, who then passes it on to Nightingale in Roland's office. The Iron Whip clan has been wiped out, and Echo offers her thanks for Roland's support. Roland instructs Spear Passy to tell Echo to continue with the plan. With that, the transmission ends, and Nightingale returns to her comfy couch to get some rest. The reason the transmission went through Spear Passy, and Roland depends on Nightingale to deliver the messages, is because sigils only work if imbued with a witch's magic. Since sigils have limited range, Spear Passy served as the middle person, delivering the transmission to Sister Echo. Though this method isn't perfect, it's far better than communicating through pigeons, which takes weeks to travel. Roland feels sad that he can't develop a more convenient method of communication, since sigils require magic to function. However, the first ever telephone line in the Western region is about to be installed, stretching all the way to City Hall. The second and third lines are already in planning. Having electric poles would consume too much energy and could easily be damaged by snow and ice. Therefore, it's wiser to lay the cables along the mountain ranges. Lotus can sink the cables into the ground, making it both convenient and safe. After the defense line is set up in the mountains, Roland plans to install more cables to maintain communication with the front line. For the defense line, Roland also plans to create underground tunnels for military purposes, and they may even need these tunnels to connect to the underground palace. Suddenly, Roland notices a massive explosion in the city through his window. Nightingale appears right away and urgently cautions Roland to stay inside the palace. Later, Sister Moon rushes to Sister Lily and reveals the explosion at the academy. Lily seems uninterested, as she needs to focus on her studies. Moon, on the other hand, tries to grab her attention by talking about the huge explosion and the fire surrounding the area. Lily dismisses it as some idiot messing up in the laboratory causing an explosion. After all, something like this has happened before, and Roland had scolded Kyle Sichi a lot for that. Moon is very offended that her friend doesn't seem to care about Neverwinter City. Lily simply pushes Moon away, continuing to peer into her microscope. As far as she's concerned, leaving the professional stuff to the professionals is the right thing to do. Let her do what she's doing, because this is also important for Neverwinter City. Of course, this gives Sister Moon a chance to slap back with a jab of her own. Teasingly, she reminds Lily that while Tilly had achieved nothing after peering into the microscope for so long, Lily used her electromagnetism to help Roland bring light to the dark. Now people can work at night without trouble. She continues to tease, reminding Lily how everyone is contributing to the city. Eventually, Lily agrees to investigate the cause of the explosion. So they and a few other witches head to the site of the incident. The area has already been restricted by the officials, and the building has been evacuated. Since nobody is inside, they sneak into the building using one of the witch's abilities, the one who used to work for the church. The art of the series has been changed, though I don't know if it was for better or worse. The background art has gotten more detailed and colors are very vibrant, but the character design now looks a little off. Eventually, the witches reach the site where the explosion happened. Summer uses her magic powers to create a hologram, revealing a classroom brimming with life as the students chatter in the class. However, it's not all sunshine and roses in this classroom. A few bullies are picking on a little girl, but another girl steps in to protect her. The bullies latch onto the protective girl, but the girl, strong and confident, manages to fight her way free, kicking the bullies down one by one. But her luck runs out when she's struck hard on the head, causing blood to pour from the wound. The pain triggers a surge of anger, and the girl's powers explode in a violent outburst, awakening her magic in a fiery burst. When a witch first awakens her powers, all the magic within her condenses, and the backlash can cause great pain. This often leads witches to use their powers unwittingly, exposing themselves to danger. Awakening in public is a death sentence. Summer's hologram shows the girl trying to regain control of her powers, managing to suppress her anger and grab her friend's hand. Tilly feels excitement stirring, another witch to join their ranks. Emmy, too, is thrilled and wants to report the new witch's awakening to Wendy right away. But not everyone shares this enthusiasm. Moon, however, seems distressed by the revelation. Before we learn the cause of her distress, all the witches make their way back to the dorms to meet with Wendy. Instead of being praised for their discovery, all the witches are scolded by Wendy for ignoring the restricted signs and entering without authorization. As the girls leave, Wendy remains fuming, still upset about the breach. Meanwhile, Moon stays behind, lost in her thoughts. Finally, Lily, frustrated with Moon's zoning out, drags her into their room and demands to know what's bothering her. Moon hesitates before revealing her fears. The new witch who awakened her powers uses electricity. Lily, initially confused, doesn't understand why this concerns Moon. Moon explains that electricity and electromagnetism are deeply connected, and if this new witch is stronger than her, Moon fears she might be rendered useless to Roland. Lily laughs aloud at what she sees as Moon's silly and shallow thinking. She reassures Moon that Roland would never abandon her, no matter how powerful the new witch becomes. Then something clicks in Lily's mind. The phrase Moon used about electricity and electromagnetism strikes her deeply. Suddenly, Lily rushes to her microscope, an epiphany dawning upon her. Moon, confused and curious, tries to ask her what's going on, but Lily quickly shoos her away, urging for silence. Then, a blinding yellow light erupts from the microscope as Lily makes a breakthrough. Later, we see Baroff and Scroll meeting Roland to report on the recent classroom incident. Thankfully, no one was critically injured, though 3 students suffered broken bones while trying to escape the blast. When the teachers heard the explosion, they quickly began evacuating the students. Thanks to Ferlin's calming words, chaos and panic were minimized, reducing the number of casualties. Agatha also froze the fire to prevent further damage to the building. Roland is relieved that the First Army's involvement was used as an excuse to cover up the true danger of a witch's awakening. preventing the public from learning about the risk. Barov then reports that the conflict between the children is related to regional tensions that need to be addressed. One child came from the southern region, while the other hailed from the eastern region. Timothy, in charge of Valencia City in the eastern region, hasn't surrendered yet. The children wouldn't have been discussing this if the adults hadn't been mentioning the city of traitors in front of them. Barov believes the parents of the children involved in the conflict should be punished, and anyone discussing betrayal or traitors should be strictly forbidden. This way, similar incidents can be prevented before they escalate. As for the issue of witches awakening, Barov suggests writing it into law to prevent further public unrest. That way, they can avoid potential conflicts and keep the awakening a secret. Hearing this, Roland acknowledges Barov's growth over the past 2 years. His ability to trace the root cause of the problem is commendable, but Roland still feels that making this a law is not the right move. He believes that simply legislating it won't stop the fear surrounding witches' awakenings. If the law contradicts public sentiment, it will only expose hidden issues. Scroll speaks up, noting that Neverwinter's citizens come from all over Greycastle, so it's natural for there to be various conflicts. Banning things just because they happen once would only complicate matters. Guiding the masses and teaching them what's right and wrong seems like a better approach than imposing blanket bans. As for the issue of witches awakening, Scroll suggests seeking Agatha's input. Tequila, home to many awakened witches, might have valuable insights into managing the situation. Roland decides to mask the incident as a simple physical conflict between students. The student who injured the witch with the chair will be required to pay medical bills, while those injured in the explosion will be compensated by the witch union. The school building will be repaired by City Hall, and classes will resume as soon as possible. As for the whole ordeal, Roland plans to handle everything as Scroll suggested. Proceeding to the next topic, Roland inquires Scroll about this new witch. Scroll gives her name as Sharon and questions if Roland wishes to meet her. Roland decides to postpone the meeting with Sharon, suggesting she should be given a few days to rest and recover from the recent incident. The next scene transitions to the hospital. There, Wendy notices Mr. Pine, who seems to be arguing with a couple. Once the couple parts ways, Wendy inquires about them. Pine reveals that the couple are the parents of the new witch. They were worried about leaving their daughter here by herself, so they asked if they could take her home. But when Pine heard that Roland wanted her to stay, they changed their minds immediately. They even started thanking Roland for taking care of her. Since Wendy is here to deliver food to Sharon, she asks Pine to show her the way. Later, Roland meets with Phyllis and Agatha. There seems to be something strange happening in the territory. In the last year, only one witch has awakened in the western region, while Tequila had more than 5 times the amount of awakenings. After discussing this with Pasha, they have arrived at a theory that something is stopping the new witches from awakening. Of course, this shocks Roland deeply. We then learn how the magic powers in this world are like tides, constantly changing. During the 2 years after the arrival of the Red Moon, the abundance of magic was at its peak, and a new witch would awaken almost every day. Gradually, the amount of magic decreased, and the time between the 2 red moons can be seen as the drought season. One would have to wait until the months of demons for more awakenings to appear. The abundance of magic peaks once every year. However, one thing to note is that the huge fluctuations of magic continue for hundreds of years. It is almost time for the next red moon, which is why they are noticing more magic fluctuations lately. That being said, there were supposed to be more awakenings, but the opposite is happening. Something must be stopping them from awakening. For a moment, Roland decides to consider Agatha's words as the truth. Since there is nothing they can do about it, Roland decides to take it as a sign that the god is simply taking a short break. After all, no matter how the awakening rates change, their mission of chasing the devils out of the Land of Dawn remains the same. Furthermore, the reason Roland summoned them was to ask about the damage a witch might cause during her awakening, and what the Alliance in Tequila does in these kinds of situations. Phyllis hints at an 8-minute rule she knows so far. The awakening of a witch doesn't happen without warning. From the moment magic starts to condense in an individual's body, it will take approximately 8 minutes before the condensed magic reaches its peak. Initially, the individual will feel a stinging pain and throbbing heat in their abdomen, and this feeling will grow stronger, until the first backlash occurs. The amount of pain someone will feel differs from person to person. Those with stronger bodies might not even feel much of a change. However, they should still feel a light sting. The 8-minute rule states that if the witch announces to everyone that she is about to awaken, all the people around her must immediately leave her side. If mortals get injured during the awakening because they didn't take cover, they are not entitled to compensation from the Alliance. However, if certain infrastructure is damaged due to the awakening, the Alliance will pay for it. Roland finds this a very creative way of handling the situation. However, this will only work under the condition that people are familiar with witches. When a young girl feels random pain, her first reaction should be that an awakening is about to take place. not that she just ate something funny. Roland then questions what happens if the witch fails to announce it. To which Phyllis responds that the new awakener may be punished physically or fined, depending on the damage done. However, these incidents are rare, since only a few witches awaken as combat witches with overwhelming powers. But thinking about it, Roland realizes that this is no longer an era where witches are above humans. So he may not be able to use this method 100%, but it is still very effective at one thing. It spreads the idea that witches are born from humans, and regardless of whether one would like to accept it or not, every underage girl might turn into a witch one day. With that rule, witches and humans can be on equal footing, and the city hall can take care of any damages caused by not announcing the awakening. Those who become injured despite the announcement are in the wrong. If he were to create a set of rules that governs the actions of witches, just like traffic rules, everyone could follow them and avoid accidents. This way, many conflicts could be resolved. We then cut to the hospital where the newly awakened witch is staying. Miss Nana is also there with Sharon. Wendy enters and asks the girl about her well-being, to which Sharon claims that she feels like something new is inside her body now, and Anna assures her that it's just magic. Sharon isn't sure if being a witch means magic hurts all the time. While placing the food box down beside her, Wendy assures Sharon that once she learns to wield her power, it will become a part of her, just like any other limb of her body. As soon as the lid is opened, the aroma of the mouth-watering food fills the air, bringing immense joy to the little girl. Seeing how happy Sharon looks, Wendy reflects on how food is always enough to win anyone's heart. This is precisely why Roland always holds banquets whenever new witches are found. The little girl devours the food like a hungry wolf, and in no time, she finishes the entire box. Wendy then asks Sharon about her friend, the one she was trying to protect, wondering if she ever came to visit her here. Sharon sadly shakes her head. After all, she herself is a southerner, just like her bullies, so there is a high chance that the girl hates her just as much as she hates them. Wendy is surprised to realize that Sharon is also from the southern region. Initially, she had assumed Sharon only helped that girl because they were both from the eastern region. However, Sharon claims that regional origins don't matter since the conflicts of nobles do not involve them. Those typical bullies were simply looking for someone to pick on, and that eastern girl happened to be an easy target. To Sharon, wrong is wrong. If no one is willing to take a stand against it, then nothing will ever change. Wendy is astonished to hear such thoughtful remarks from a girl of her age. It seems Roland had been worrying for nothing, as this girl does not need Wendy's counseling at all. Just one glance at Sharon's face is enough to tell that she is certain of her choices. The scene cuts to the castle, where Roland is surprised to learn that Sharon has already come to terms with the fact that she has awakened as a witch. What's more, she is now ready to become a part of the witch union. She wishes to become like Nana someday. Roland can tell that she is an outstanding child for her age. At 15 years old, her magic vortex is ranked between middle and upper levels, almost on par with some of the adult witches from Tequila. The one who compared her to the witches of Tequila is Phyllis, who is always the most enthusiastic when it comes to testing new witches. Sharon's ability allows her to generate electric currents. With a small amount, she can light up bulbs, though she often burns them out. When she channels a great deal of electricity, her currents become like thunder, capable of penetrating wooden planks or melting metal. However, by exerting herself too much, she drains her energy quickly. In terms of consistency, she is not as stable as Moon's ability to generate power. In conclusion, she is classified as a battle-type witch, though she also has potential in production lines. Since she has just awakened her powers, she is still struggling to control them properly. Roland is certain that Sharon has plenty of potential to surpass her current limits. Once she understands the concepts behind electric currents, she will improve by huge margins. Not to mention, her powers will naturally grow stronger as she approaches adulthood. He looks forward to her breakthrough. For now, Roland decides to let her focus on training while also receiving an education. With that, Wendy is dismissed. As she walks away, Roland considers how Sharon's strong sense of justice makes her a great candidate for the law department. The thought of a young girl manipulating electric currents while patrolling the streets, ready to capture offenders, is certainly an amusing one. Basically, she could be the Batman of Neverwinter City. Later, as Wendy walks toward her quarters, Maggie and Lightning come flying toward her with urgent news. Apparently, Lily has produced an overwhelming amount of mushrooms, filling an entire room to the point of overflowing. She achieved this feat using her magic. Nightingale and Anna also arrive at the scene, and with their combined efforts, they manage to obliterate the overgrown mushrooms. Later, Roland learns that Lily's new ability allows her to duplicate microorganisms she observes under a microscope. When she underwent her evolution, she just so happened to be looking at the spores of birdkiss mushrooms. Lily admits that she doesn't fully understand her abilities yet. The room was filled with mushrooms before she even realized what was happening. Roland pats her head and decides to hold a mushroom feast that night. The scene then cuts to the southern region. a place where flames burn eternally. Even the chilling winds of the months of demons fail to reach this place. Seeing the scorching heat, Andrea has no doubt why this land is called Searing Flame Island. She hadn't expected the southernmost region to have such an unusual place. Ash shares the same thoughts. The heat here is so intense that one could lose all the moisture in their body within 2 days. This place is actually a designated battleground where warriors from various Sand City clans fight to showcase their strength and glory. It appears to be rich in oil and gas reserves, which is why the land is constantly aflame. However, to the native people, this place is a sacred battlefield where they can impress the gods with their combat prowess. Let's not forget about Talim, that baldy bastard. Every now and then, he'll have a few inner monologues that give us glimpses into his character development. Every time he hears Roland's name, he grows increasingly curious about what kind of person he really is. Regardless, Talim is also very grateful to Roland. It's because of Roland that he is able to stand in the arena for the holy duel once again. As soon as they enter the arena, the onlookers begin throwing insults at the Osha clan, calling them cowards, and throwing colorful remarks that would make anyone itch. These people are from the feisty Cut Bone clan. Talim can't help but feel sorry for them, because they haven't yet realized that they are nothing more than stepping stones for the Osha clan's goddess. Then, the leader of the number 1 clan, Wildflame, steps forward. His name is Changus the Burning. He requests the leader of the Osha clan to step forward, and Our Lady gracefully obliges. Since this is not the first time she's participated, Changus is positive that she's well aware of the rules. He reveals that the Cutbone clan will have 22 contestants. All she has to do now is choose a weapon for her warrior. Surrendering or forgoing a battle is allowed. However, she cannot betray the vows she made in front of the 3 gods. The battle will end when only one person is standing, and the winner will earn the right to enter Iron Sand City. If she's ready, they can begin. At that, Ash steps forward, a giant weapon in hand. Talim quickly reminds her that she cannot bring her own weapon into the duel. This is for fairness' sake. In response, Ash lodges her giant sword into the ground and eyes the weapons laid out in front of her. Before picking one up, she asks if there's any rule regarding one weapon per person. Talim reveals that she can carry more than just one weapon if she's capable of handling them. At this, Ash picks up a shield for her left hand, to defend, and a giant hammer-like weapon for her offensive stance, something that suits her personality perfectly. Seeing how effortlessly Ash handles the massive weapons, Talim is sure that the Bone Clan is about to get boned. Andrea is ready as well. She grabs arrows, selecting precisely 22, one for each participant, as there are 22 people they will be fighting against in the duel. With that, Ash, Andrea, Iron Axe, and the goddess are ready to face their opponents. Seeing how only 4 of them are going up against 22 people, Talim can't help but comment on the odds. But Ash reminds him that there were no instructions telling them to match their number of participants with the opposing team. So for her team, 4 members is more than enough to fight against 22 people. Someone quotes one of the rules, stating that the number of warriors allowed from each clan must be between 15 and 30. Furthermore, the number of participants from the challenging clan should not exceed that of the challenged clan. That means if the opponent sends out 22 warriors, Osha would be allowed to send no more than 22 warriors as well. The right move would be to send out an equivalent number of participants, especially considering the fact that the Grey Castle warriors look short and frail and don't seem brave enough. Changus then asks the Osha clan members one last time if they really plan to send only 4 members. Ash boldly responds, and we already know what her answer is. She then turns to the bastards about to face her and wonders if these shitheads have prepared their wills in advance because she won't guarantee anyone will be left alive. The opponent can tell that this woman is gutsy, but they're not sure if her smug attitude will actually help in the battle about to unfold. It looks like we're about to find out since Changus finally commences the holy duel between Osha clan and Cutbone clan. The enemy warriors charge at our party with full-on bravery. But soon enough, Sister Echo begins to sing her lullaby, catching everyone present off guard. Her song starts messing with the enemy's heads, making them massacre each other. Talim can do nothing but watch in awe at Sister Echo's might. Next, Andrea makes her move. She launches a bunch of arrows with her bare hands, taking down all the bastards in one go. Talim is once again boggled as to how the hell did she fire arrows with just her hands. And to top it off, every single one of them hits the enemy right over the collarbone with precision. Sister Echo changes her song to match Ash's ferocity. Ash charges at her opponent like a hungry beast, and with her sheer fighting will combined with Sister Echo's energizing song, the battlefield starts to feel like thousands of soldiers are marching. Ash, embodying those 1,000 soldiers, begins massacring the poor guys with her hammer. Then, one bastard prepares to launch an arrow infused with the Stone of Divine Judgment. But before that arrow can do any harm to Sister Echo, Iron Axe snatches it mid-air like the absolute gigachad he is. Talim, once again, is losing his freaking mind. And just like that, all the enemy soldiers are down on the ground, injured but not dead. One bald bastard suddenly starts preaching at the top of his lungs, rallying his wounded brothers back to their feet. They all eventually get into formation, preparing for their ultimate move. The baldy at the front makes it clear that the warriors of Cutbone Clan are not afraid of death. They are willing to sacrifice their lives in this holy duel, but they will not die in vain. The Holy Mother is not a murderer. She respects bravery and power, and she praises the mercy of the strong. Ash finds it laughable that these puny guys think they can win with just their conviction. To prove how utterly wrong they are, she alone begins pushing back all 22 enemies with her sheer power. Seeing this insane display of raw strength, the audience erupts in cheers, all rooting for Ash. Behind Changuz, a hooded woman cracks a smile after witnessing such an interesting sight. As Ash starts getting tired against the 22 jacked bald dudes, her friends step in to back her up, giving her the much-needed strength to keep going. Finally, all the bald bastards begin to struggle. The audience erupts into another round of jubilation, and eventually, every single one of them gets pushed back, scattering around like knocked-out bowling pins. Later we cut to Iron Sand City. In the training arena, that same hooded woman, whose name is Lorgar, is blowing off some steam, punching the sandbags with her mutated hand. Changuz arrives at the training grounds, where he learns that Lorgar, the same girl from before, has been relentlessly training since morning. He proceeds to go inside, but the guard outside humbly suggests that he shouldn't, as she doesn't want to be disturbed. But since the guard knows he can't order around the patriarch, he swallows his words and pretends he never said anything. So, the old man steps inside anyway. Watching her train, he feels glad that Lorgar is becoming more and more serious about her duties. Once he himself is defeated in the platform of Searing Flame, she will be next in line to take his seat as the patriarch of the Wild Flame clan. The hit she just landed on the sandbag could easily rip an ordinary human in half. He finally speaks, teasing her for how competitive she's becoming after seeing Osha clan's performance. He can clearly tell that his daughter has set her sights on the formidable warrior Ash, because his daughter does not want to give up her title as the greatest one-on-one combat fighter. She's a little annoyed that Osha clan won't challenge them for a while, especially since their main goal for entering Iron Sand City has been accomplished. Her father also agrees with her. If Osha clan truly wants to become the rising clan of Iron Sand City, they'll have to take care of a lot of miscellaneous matters first before they can find their footing inside the city. Man, I'm hating this arc. This is exactly why I'm going to skip a lot of their random bullshit jibber-jabber. Just as these guys are talking about how Osha clan won't challenge them for a duel anytime soon, their expectations get subverted when a guard reports that Osha clan has requested another holy duel. It's only been a day since they won the duel and earned the right to move into Iron Sand City, so Changuz has no idea why they're already going for another fight. Lorgar questions the guard about which clan Osha intends to challenge next. The guard answers that it's the Sandstorm clan, which is currently ranked 4th. Changuz asks if they've moved into Iron Sand City from the Oasis. The guard reports that they have refused to move. Of course, this gets the patriarch and his daughter thinking about their next move. Regardless, Lorgar seems even more interested in Osha clan after their unexpected decision. The next scene takes us at the Searing Flame Island battle arena, where Ash is seen beating the hell out of a sand golem. And with her last opponent down, she wins the match. Cut to Skull Tavern. The entire place is buzzing with people narrating Ash's exploits. They are amazed at how she obliterated her opponent with just a single punch. And this wasn't just anyone. Her opponent was Sandra Sandraine, the so-called goddess of the Sandstorm clan. Sandra had the ability to turn sand into armor and attack her enemies by manipulating gravel. But the fact that Ash defeated this monster in one punch is just insane. What's even more unbelievable is that while Osha clan is dominating their challengers, there have been no reported casualties in any of the battles. Either the opponents suffered injuries to their shoulders or knees, or they were simply knocked unconscious. Turns out Osha clan also defeated the Blackwater clan, which is a huge well-known clan infamous for its recklessness and cruelty. Compared to the previous two duels, that particular fight was much bloodier. But still, no one died. As the tavern continues hailing Osha clan's might, Tullum suddenly stands up and generously offers free drinks to everyone from Osha clan. Everyone is now even more hyped, rooting for Osha to win their next battle as well. It is then that a guy rushes into the tavern with shocking news. He reveals that nobody fought because the Wild Wave clan willingly forfeited their position. Cut to Sister Echo and Iron Axe. They literally did not expect Wild Wave to forfeit like this. But in one way or another, Sister Echo is glad. Wild Wave settled for 3rd place, meaning they won't have to fight them. Because if they had done, things could have gone drastically different as Ash had already been stained with blood. At that moment, Ash enters the tent, revealing that most of the blood belonged to her opponents. Her minor injuries aren't enough to hinder her performance. Besides, Sister Leaf's herbs are working wonders, so most of the deeper wounds have already started scabbing. Andrea chimes in, explaining that transcendent witches have always had strong physiques, After all, their brains don't need nutrients. Their muscles grow at an alarming rate, and most importantly, their faces can't get any thicker. She also mentions that people have no idea what Ash went through while hunting down the church alone. She hid in places even rats wouldn't go and survived on rotten flesh. If that wasn't enough to kill her, then a few wounds are nothing for Ash. As Ash reclines in her chair to rest, Iron Axe can't help but admire her. This is what a true warrior is supposed to be. Sister Echo then asks what's their next move should be. Roland's original plan was to create legendary battles, generate as much publicity as possible, and have the entire desert narrate the exploits of Osha clan's warriors. Iron Axe then reveals their next step: defeat the Wildflame clan. And after that, Sister Echo will have to preach the script Roland prepared in front of everyone. Hearing this, Sister Echo feels a little anxious. She is not sure if the Sand People even believe Roland's words. Iron Axe reassures her not to worry. After all, even Roland isn't expecting miracles. He knows that changing people's minds and gaining their trust will take time. Tolim suddenly enters the camp, bringing great news. The Wildflame clan has accepted the duel. But there's a catch. They have specific conditions on whom they wish to fight. Apparently, the third princess of the Wildflame clan, Lorgar, has personally requested a one-on-one duel with Lady Ash. The news spreads like wildfire. A massive crowd camps near the Searing Flame arena. They might not be able to witness this legendary battle firsthand, but at the very least, they'll be the first to hear the results. Most of them are pumped that the princess of Osha clan has finally returned to take her revenge. Without further ado, we cut to the Searing Flame arena. The crowd goes absolutely nuts seeing Ash step onto the stage, representing the Osha clan. From the Wildflame clan's side, Lorgar steps forward, the strongest goddess of the southernmost region. People are hyped beyond belief. This is a battle between the strongest warriors of the north and south, with no weapons, armor, or any tools allowed, including divine stones. The Sand People respect true warriors, and here, both fighters are free to unleash their full strength before the three gods. As Lorgar pulls back her hood, Ash immediately mistakes her for having dog ears, which mildly annoys Lorgar. Her ears are those of a wolf. Still, Ash takes note of something else. Lorgar isn't wearing any shoes, even though the ground beneath them is scorching hot. Lorgar claims that Mojin people are not afraid of hot sand, but Ash can see through her bluff. It's clear that this girl is struggling even if she won't admit it. Ash then calls her out for her use of magic. She finds it interesting that Lorgar is maintaining her transformed form at all times. Has she simply grown used to the constant mana consumption? But Lorgar denies knowing what Ash is talking about. She claims her transformation is the result of a sacrifice she made to receive power from the three gods. She can no longer return to her human form. She can only live her life as half human, half beast. And now Ash finally understands why she kept herself cloaked before stepping into the arena. She didn't want others to see her true form. She only reveals herself on the battlefield. For a moment, Ash wonders if she could distract Lorgar by offering her a bone. Maybe her fighting ability would drop significantly if she got tempted. After all, this trick always works on Maggie. But enough of this chit-chat. The battle begins. Inside Changuz's mind, he reflects on Lorgar's transformation. After becoming a goddess, she fell in love with fighting and grew stronger every day. For 5 years, no one has dared challenge the Wildflame clan because of her. But constant battles have gradually changed parts of her body into that of a wolf. Even when she isn't using her power, she remains this way. She will never be able to live the life of a normal girl. No handsome warrior will ever fall for her. This is why the Wildflame clan must win. She has to become the matriarch. Only then will people stop talking about her appearance. As soon as the match begins, Lorgar lunges at Ash, transforming her hand into a wolf's claw. Their fists collide, sending shockwaves through the air from the sheer pressure of their strength. It's clear both fighters are enjoying this, and they have no intention of backing down. Ash manages to push Lorgar back and comes crashing down like a meteor. But the hit doesn't land and Lorgar simply steps aside. Lorgar retaliates, launching herself forward with a devastating kick. Ash catches her leg midair and squeezes with such force that it sends sharp pain through Lorgar's body. But Lorgar quickly retaliates, breaking free from Ash's grasp. She immediately counterattacks, but Ash dodges and follows up with a series of punches. Lorgar blocks most of them, but Ash lands a solid hit to her forehead, causing it to swell. Then, Ash delivers a devastating kick, sending Lorgar crashing to the ground. The spectators are in awe, watching their so-called goddess get effortlessly beaten. But just as Ash prepares to finish her off, something changes. Lorgar begins transforming again, this time into something more monstrous. A moment later, she has completely turned into a massive beast. Ash is stunned, and the crowd is too holding their breath. The beast pounces at Ash. She quickly dodges, but it doesn't stop. Lorgar is relentless, her speed now comparable to the soldiers of divine punishment. Ash is pushed back as the beast continues throwing one strike after another. Sister Echo starts worrying, but Andrea reassures her. Ash is good at handling damage. Something like this isn't enough to take her down. She then explains the brutal training methods they used in Tequila. It's a method that forces witches to stay in the zone by constantly consuming magical power. Roland finds this method outdated and inefficient. He believes that if witches have time to train like that, they should use it to study how muscles and bones convert chemical energy into mechanical energy instead. But for Ash, who isn't the most intelligent, the inefficient method suits her perfectly. Now that Ash is done taking damage, it's time for her to fight back. She pulls off her pants belt out of the blue. The beast is totally confused by this unexpected move. The onlookers are just as confused as Lorgar. They have yet to figure out what kind of weapon is that. Besides, weapons are forbidden in this duel. Breaking that rule would only bring Ash humiliation. But Ash simply tosses the belt onto the ground. The moment it lands, the ground beneath it shatters. These belts weren't just accessories, they were restraints. And now Ash is finally removing them to unleash her full strength. Agatha had given her this transcendent training. She had ordered Ash to suppress her powers, consume her magic, and keep these constraints on her body until the day she truly needed that extra power. And now that the restraints are gone, Ash feels a surge of power unlike anything before. She clenches her fists and then launches herself at the beast. Lorgar, still in her monstrous form, retaliates with a furious counterattack. Her tail swings violently, creating a literal tornado that sends the onlookers into a frenzy. Meanwhile, Ash is airborne, descending at the speed of a bullet. Blood splatters as she drills her fist straight into Lorgar's eye. She wants Lorgar to surrender now that she's been roughed up enough. But Lorgar refuses to back down. She retaliates with a devastating blow that sends Ash flying. The beast looms over her, towering like an unstoppable force. The crowd watches in awe as the battle has reached its critical point. But Ash forces herself to stand, battered but unfazed. In fact, she seems even more fired up, eager to keep going. She can feel that she's stronger than she was last year. Clenching her fist again, she targets Lorgar's injured eye. This time she channels magic into her other fist. But before she can strike, Lorgar blocks her attack. The magic within Ash is surging faster than ever before. Despite the heavy blows she's taken, her arms feel stronger than ever. If this were the past, she would have already been obliterated, her ribs shattered, her organs ruptured. But now all she feels is pain. No numbness, no weakness. Ash presses forward. With some slick acrobatics, she lands a powerful kick to Lorgar's leg. A sickening crack echoes through the arena as the beast collapses to the ground. But Lorgar, stubborn as ever, forces herself up on 3 legs. Her father, seeing this, orders her to forfeit. But Lorgar's fighting spirit hasn't dimmed. She is still ready to battle. And Ash, though standing, is in no better shape. She admits her body is in agony. Her organs feel like they're no longer in their proper places. However, humans can move with 2 legs while wolves cannot. Now that Lorgar has lost an eye and a leg, her mobility is crippled. No matter how strong she is, she won't be able to land a hit. Ash considers finishing the job, taking out Lorgar's other eye. That way, she'll have no choice but to surrender. Her lost limbs and injuries wouldn't be a problem. If Ash can drag her back to the western region, Nana could heal her in no time. The stage is set. It's do or die. But before the battle can escalate further, a massive shadow looms over them. A giant eagle swoops down and slams into Lorgar, pinning her to the ground. The beast shrieks as it presses down, causing Lorgar immense pain. This isn't just any bird, it's a hybrid demonic beast. Ash's eyes narrow. She doesn't care what happens in a duel, but she won't stand by and let a witch be attacked by some random monster. Without hesitation, she dashes forward, ready to take it down. Before we witness the epic clash, the scene shifts to a moment earlier, before the 4-winged eagle descended upon the arena. Just outside the searing flame arena, eager spectators had set up their tents. A commotion stirs, drawing them out of their shelters. When they look up, they see the monstrous eagle circling in the sky. The beast is heading directly for the arena. One man, sensing that things are about to go south, immediately jumps onto his horse and rides toward the battleground. Back in the arena, chaos erupts. People scramble to evacuate, desperate to escape the brutal fate that Lorgar just endured. Ash rushes to intercept the monstrous eagle before it can cause more harm. Echo begins to sing, her voice cutting through the chaos, trying to calm the panicked crowd. Andrea, meanwhile, pulls out her massive gun. With deadly precision, she fires. The bullet rips through the beast's foot, obliterating it on impact. The eagle screeches in pain, finally releasing Lorgar and Ash. Iron Axe commands his soldiers to open fire. As arrows and bullets fly, Lorgar begins reverting back to her original form. Ash rushes to Lorgar, asking if she's all right. Lorgar reassures her, claiming she won't die. But Ash isn't comforted. One side of Lorgar's chest is caved in, and she can even see broken bones protruding. The monstrous eagle, however, isn't done. It dives back toward Lorgar. But Ash is quick, grabbing Lorgar and jumping out of the way. The eagle scoops up 2 guys, tossing them toward the arena. Andrea is also struggling to land a shot, because the creature is quick, dodging each of her attacks with surprising intelligence. Then Hummingbird steps forward. Through her magic, she makes the two humans light enough to fall gently to the ground, saving them from a deadly descent. Ash realizes that this demonic beast has come for the witches. They have very limited firearms, and Ash isn't sure how to proceed. Lorgar, however, insists that Ash throw her into the air. Ash is not sure what to make of this unusual request of her, but Lorgar insists again that Ash throw her up. It's their only chance to catch the monster. Ash fears the failure and the consequences, but Lorgar isn't afraid of dying. She believes a warrior's best end is on the battlefield, fighting to the last moment. She's honored to face someone as formidable as Ash. Ash understands the warrior spirit in Lorgar, but assures her that this won't be their last duel. Lorgar isn't so sure, admitting that even if she survives, her fractured body won't allow her to fight like she used to. But Ash isn't concerned about that. They have Nana, who can heal anyone in the blink of an eye. At first, Lorgar is skeptical, but Ash's confidence convinces her. The thought of being healed sparks a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Ash launches Lorgar into the air. The eagle spots her and opens its mouth to devour her. But Lorgar shifts into her wolf form and slaps the beast away with a powerful swipe. Lorgar doesn't stop there and continues to torment the beast with relentless attacks. Andrea, seeing an opening, decides to ready her divine golden arrow. As Lorgar and the monster crash to the ground, Lorgar is exhausted. She's drained everything she has. Ash quickly rushes to her side and rescues her. Andrea releases her arrow, and it finds its mark. The explosion is massive, obliterating the creature into bite-sized chunks. The aftermath is a gruesome rain of monster remains. With the battle over, Ash hands Lorgar over to her father. She warns him that while Lorgar is alive, she's in critical condition. Even the best herbs will only prolong her life for a short time. The only thing that can save her is proper healing, which means returning to Grey Castle. The father, desperate, offers anything to save his daughter. Before anything is done, though, Ash asks if he acknowledges the results of the holy duel. He agrees without hesitation, declaring the Osha clan as victors. The crowd erupts in cheers, solidifying the Osha clan's victory. Sister Echo steps forward, walking toward the jubilant crowd. She introduces herself as the matriarch of the Osha clan, Drow Silvermoon, though she also goes by Echo, hailing from Grey Castle's Witch Union. She recounts how her life was shattered by the Iron Whip clan, losing everything, including her clan members who were forced into exile. She wandered the port of Clearwater until she eventually found refuge in the capital city of Grey Castle. In Grey Castle, she was saved by a witch organization. She moved to a small village in the western region, where she took on the name Echo. She confesses that compared to her former identity as Drow Silvermoon, she prefers her new name. While her past was filled with pain, she found greater happiness in the border town, a place that transformed from insignificance to prosperity. She credits a certain ruler for this change, Roland Wimbledon, the king of Grey Castle. He is the one who reshaped her fate. Ash, standing in the background, suddenly realizes that this wasn't the speech Echo was supposed to deliver. Andrea notices too, but they can't deny that Echo's words are genuine, coming straight from her heart. Echo continues, acknowledging that everyone is likely wondering why she's sharing her story. After all, Grey Castle belongs to the Northerners, and it seems irrelevant to the Sand People. While this may have been true in the past, things have changed. Under Roland's rule, people of all races and backgrounds are welcomed. There's no discrimination, and the king has already embraced all from ordinary humans to witches, to foreigners. This is proof of Roland's mercy and generosity. Now he wishes to save the Sand People from the desert's brutal conditions. He wants to bring them fresh water, oases, and a future, just as he did for the witches. Echo shares that she is here on Roland's orders, as the matriarch of her clan, to deliver a message. Roland wishes to become the chief of Mojin, uniting the desert people under his rule. The crowd murmurs in surprise. Roland, it seems, wants to be the leader of all the clans, just like an envoy of the three gods. Out of the sea of people, one guy raises his hand to object. He argues that since no other king is Mojin, then how could he be ruler of the desert? His question carries weight. Even Ash starts to worry about how Echo will respond. With a beautiful, cunning smile, Echo fires back, asking if the envoys of the three gods in the past were all Mojin. The answer, of course, is no. The envoys are said to be genuine giants, legendary beings with no fixed appearance. One had 4 feet and 3 hands, while another had countless heads, but none of them were Mojin. But the loudmouth continues to object. This time he claims that the law of the envoys states that someone can only become the master of the southernmost region if they can create countless oases and impose extreme hunger, thirst, and death on the people. He questions whether the king Echo speaks of is capable of such a feat. First, Echo makes it clear that Roland can't turn the southernmost region into a land filled with greenery. However, he is willing to welcome all the Sand People into Grey Castle. Once there, they can live next to lakes and forests, No one will ever have to suffer from thirst or sandstorms again. That's the promise Roland has made. He will provide them with a new oasis, and that oasis is the north. It will forever be filled with an abundance of resources and riches. Tollum finally understands the true plans of the Osha clan. They never came seeking something as trivial as revenge. They came to usher in a new order. Yet, the patriarch of the Blackwater clan continues to dismiss Echo's words and refuses to acknowledge any validity behind them. He reminds everyone of what happened to the Blackbone clan and the Sandstone clan. They believed in the words of Garcia, and both met tragic ends. According to him, all the Sand People will only end up with as much land as they can grasp, forced to fight for territory just like in the southernmost region, and ultimately serve their conquerors. But his words fall on deaf ears. No one seems to share his cynical view. Tollum knows why. Swaying the crowd with words might have worked before the duel, but not after. Everyone has seen that the Osha clan hasn't killed a single person since the holy duels began. No other clan can claim such mercy. Supporting the King of the North suddenly doesn't sound like a bad idea. Echo continues, explaining that while evil people exist everywhere, even in the North, the Queen of Clearwater might have been ill-intentioned, but that doesn't mean everyone there is the same. She emphasizes that Garcia Wimbledon was after soldiers, not citizens. That's the key difference between her and Roland. That's why she eliminated Blackbone and Sandstone, the two strongest powers. Roland is different. He sees the Sand People as his own. Anyone, regardless of their clan or strength, can enter the kingdom of Grey Castle. He doesn't require the Sand People to make sacrifices. No enlightened ruler would stand idly by while his people die unnecessarily. Changus then asks what price they must pay to join the North. After all, nothing in this world is free, so why should Roland help the Sand People without receiving something in return? Though, whatever the price, the old man is willing to accept it. Sister Echo reassures him that Roland only asks for a simple favor from his people, which is that they work. She proudly announces that all he wants is for his people to work for their king and themselves. He wants his people to earn salaries, improve their quality of life, receive education, and raise their children. These are the things he longs for. Roland believes there is a path in this world that doesn't require constant killing and suffering. No more will Sand People shed blood, sweat, and tears for oases that might vanish one day. She asks them if they want to wait for tear deaths, or do they want a happy ending that promises prosperity for all. Of course, the crowd erupts in unison, wanting to live with her, and they all beg her to take them there. Iron Axe feels proud of Echo for finally doing what needed to be done. Echo further assures them that time will eliminate any lingering doubts. She urges everyone to start packing immediately. They will gather at the small oasis, and those who haven't decided yet need not worry. They can weigh their options and come to a final conclusion. She promises that some will be led to the north and given a nice place to settle. As long as everyone follows Grey Castle's laws, Roland will protect them. All the men drop to their knees, ready to serve the chief. Later, we cut to Neverwinter, where Roland receives the good news. The Sand People are willing to follow the Northern King. Roland couldn't be happier that taking over the southern region has been a success. Later, Roland then calls Nana, Maggie, and Lightning. He wants them to take a trip to Iron Sand City, as there's a report of a witch who's been mortally wounded and needs Nana's healing touch. He instructs them to be ready tonight as they'll set off tomorrow. He doesn't want them to rush, only ensuring they arrive at Fallen Dragon Ridge tomorrow night and Iron Sand City the day after, where Ash will meet them. While Lightning and Maggie are excited about the adventure, Lightning protests that Roland shouldn't explore the snowy mountains without her. If he did, she'd cry all day for missing such a great adventure. Roland laughs at her fretfulness but seriously acknowledges her request, assuring her that she will play a crucial role in the exploration. The scene then cuts to Third Border City. At the mine entrance, Roland has built a gigantic door, a project that cost him a third of Bordertown's metal supply. At least it will block any demonic beasts from entering the mines. Phyllis uses one of the magic stones to light up the dark mine as they venture further inside. Curious Wendy suddenly asks Roland why he calls this place Third Border City. If the border area is considered the first location and this is the third border city, then where is the second border city? Roland simply states that the name fits perfectly. He believes the number 3 is ideal for strongholds. Wendy doesn't want to delve too deeply into the rationale. If Roland likes it, she's fine with it. Roland assures her that the name isn't important. The important thing is that it will be remembered forever. Phyllis, however, has no clue what Roland is rambling about. So Wendy explains that he just rambles sometimes, and there's nothing to worry about. As they continue deeper, they finally meet the Maze Ruin Witches, who have set up camp under the mountains. Roland is both astonished and thrilled to finally meet them in person after all this time. Nightingale is trailing Roland from closely behind while hiding under her mist, making sure that these witches don't pull anything shady. Pasha is amazed by Roland's calm demeanor. He isn't even a little scared. Even the tequila witches usually lose their composure when witnessing an primeval vessel for the first time. As Pasha extends her hand for a handshake, one of the witches, Alethea, snaps at Roland. She believes he only dispatched one mortal team to escort the artifact, a team that, in her eyes, is woefully inadequate for providing proper security. It seems as if he sent those few mortals just to spy on them. Before Alethea can get more riled up, another witch stops her. Roland then reveals that the reason he is not scared at all is the fact that fear comes from the unknown. No matter what form you take, you are still witches of tequila. There's nothing to fear when it comes to things he understands. Agatha has become an extremely valuable member of the Witch Union. Everyone loves and trusts her. Pasha agrees, noting that they have cooperated with each other for quite some time now. Roland reveals that in the face of the devils, they should set aside their prejudices and unite to fight the real threat. Returning to business, Roland wants to inspect the artifact. He is curious to see that coveted item, the one that is said to decide the fate of humankind, and for which the entire devil race is desperate. The artifact is concealed inside a crystal box stuffed with copious amounts of divine judgment stones. Because of these stones, Nightingale sadly admits she can't get too close to it. So Roland steps forward alone. The witches explain that this is the only way to restrict the artifact's influence. Without any divine judgment stones, the citizens in the cities might fall under the artifact's sway. Before Roland touches it, Pasha explains a few things to avoid any mishaps. Wendy then asks if the artifact is really that dangerous. Celine assures her that as long as she isn't facing it alone, she'll be fine. Pasha elaborates that when you open your heart before the artifact, you see fascinating images. Whether you're a witch or a mortal, the crystal will allure you to come inside. She warns them that what they might see isn't completely fictional. It's different from the phantom instrument. What appears in the painted scrolls will have a real impact on reality. That's why she strictly advises never to accept the artifact's summons. Roland then inquires why it's necessary to only come closer to this artifact with multiple people. Pasha explains that once trapped in the divine realm, your body reacts in unpredictable ways, slowed movements, a dazed look, or even incoherent mumbling. That's when you need someone to pull you away from the artifact's influence. Throughout history, many individuals who touch the artifact alone never return to their bodies. Touching it in pairs or trios can significantly lower the risks. Since there are already 5 people present, that's why they're allowing Roland to observe the artifact up close. Alethea explains the second problem. As everyone knows, the huge paintings in the artifact showcase foreign civilizations, and when you see them, they will definitely try to harm you. Furthermore, no one would hold them accountable if Roland ended up scared out of his wits. Of course, Roland isn't fazed at all. He just tells her to open the gate if there's nothing else. As a modern human who has witnessed plenty of alien creatures and horrifying ghosts in movies, his tolerance is way higher than that of people from ancient societies. Finally, the sheets of stone of divine judgment are pulled out, revealing the crimson jewel. Roland proceeds toward the crystal, and they all sit around it. Alethea is annoyed that Roland didn't even flinch, especially since she expected him to get scared like a chicken. However, another witch believes that Roland being scared wouldn't do them any good. In fact, since he is the king, it's only better if he's this resilient. They all discuss how they made a huge mistake letting Roland come here. But let's cut their jibber-jabber and transition to our boy, who now finds himself inside the jewel, surrounded by 4 paintings of the 4 civilizations. While 2 frames contain imagery, 1 frame is empty, most likely belonging to the civilization that has gone extinct. The 4th frame shows the place where he and the witches are currently sitting. He calls out, wondering if they can hear him, but it seems like they can't. He then tries touching the painting where he and the witches are sitting, but he's suddenly spooked when one of the images makes noise. The sound is coming from the image of a devil sitting on a devil's throne. Roland tries speaking with the devil, but the only response he gets is grumbling noises. Then, a massive eye with multiple retinas appears. Roland lets these zesty-ass bastards know that they can't scare him with just this little trick. He greets both specimens from the 2 civilizations. He wants them to sit down and have a little heart-to-heart instead of fighting, but they don't respond to anything Roland says. Then one of the monsters extends its tentacles toward him. Meanwhile, outside, the witches are relieved that he hasn't stumbled across anything nasty yet. Alethea is sure he won't last long. During the Land of Dawn era, the longest a mortal had ever lasted was around 15 minutes. Celine reminds her that even the witches didn't do any better. So how long one lasts in the divine land has nothing to do with possessing magic powers. Warriors who had fought devils before usually lasted longer in there, and Lady Alice set the record at nearly 2 hours. So, for a mortal king who usually hides in the background, Roland is already doing quite well. He should be coming out any second now. Alethea thinks he's just hanging in there longer to avoid embarrassing himself in front of everyone. But Celine warns that if he tries to do that, he'll get dizzy, and eventually, he might even faint. Pasha believes that if he faints, it'll actually benefit them. The strain on his mental state might scare him away from wanting to engage with the artifact again, which would be good for everyone. Rather than being scared out of his wits, fainting from fatigue is the best way to retreat. Not only would it reduce his curiosity, but they could also avoid ruining their relationship with Roland. But another 15 minutes pass, and Roland is still hanging in there. It's not that surprising to Pasha, though, since Roland has surprised them in many ways before. Still, he has now set a new record. Meanwhile, Nightingale suddenly notices something peculiar, so she quickly reports it to Wendy. Wendy, worried, rushes toward Roland, but Pasha blocks her before she can approach him. The artifact might affect her if she gets too close. Wendy insists on going inside to bring Roland back, but Pasha reminds her that even if she did, she wouldn't be able to bring him back. No matter how many people build a connection with the artifact, they all see different things. That's when Nightingale suddenly pops out of her mist with a revolver in hand. The witches of the tequila go absolutely bonkers with terror at the sight. With no choice, Pasha grabs Roland and throws him toward Wendy. Then, they immediately cover the artifact with the Stone of Divine Judgment. Roland opens his eyes in Wendy's lap, and she worriedly asks if he's all right. He reveals that he saw the Guardian and 2 monsters from the other 2 artifacts. He had a small chat with them, but he's sure they didn't understand him. The Ruin Maze witches are shocked to learn that he encountered the devil and a massive eyeball. Pasha finds it unbelievable. Not only did Roland face the devil and another enemy from a foreign race, but he also managed to hold on for so long. Among everyone, only Alethea had lasted the longest inside the illusion, but even she only stayed in there for about an hour. When they ask Roland to omit the details, he vaguely describes how tentacles suddenly appeared and started restraining both of the specimens. The tentacles continued to hurt them until they were ultimately defeated, despite their efforts to fight back. Celine mentions that it's quite normal for black tentacles to appear. As one's mental state weakens, the artifact's influence grows stronger, leading to hallucinations, illusions, and tentacles. But what Alethea doesn't understand is the fact that the mortal king witnessed the complete opposite. The tentacles attacked the enemies, not him. Furthermore, Roland saw the guardians of 2 civilizations, and not only did he come out unscathed, but he also forced them to retreat. The only explanation for this phenomenon is that Roland's mental state is as strong as Lady Alice's, the Queen of Comet City. Roland then expresses his gratitude for them dragging him out, because honestly, he had walked through that borderless place for so long that he was too lazy to walk back himself. Pasha then asks if he wants to explore the artifact even further. Roland shakes his head with no. There are only 4 paintings in there, and no matter how much he stares at them, nothing will change. Now he wants to see the central vessel next. The central vessel looks like a lump of grotesque flesh. Countless witches sacrificed their souls and merged with this entity, all in hopes of deciphering the records and archives left behind by the underground civilization. Roland is quite bewildered as to why it's chained up like this, especially since it houses many witches of Tequila, including Lady Eleanor, the 3rd seat of the Alliance. Pasha reminds him that these tentacles are powerful enough to crack mountains and rocks. Since this entity lacks a proper conscious mind, not restraining it could lead to serious problems. Roland acknowledges that, aside from imprisoning it, there doesn't seem to be any other option. Still, he feels sad that all those witches sacrificed everything for Tequila, only to be trapped here in the darkness with no freedom at all. Pasha reveals that they once tried testing whether the entity retained any emotions. Unfortunately, they never got an answer to that question. Souls that have merged cannot be separated using the core. As a result, they remain completely cut off from the outside world, unable to recognize anything happening around them. Furthermore, Alethea believes that merging with Lady Eleanor is every Tequila witch's fate, and the same applies to them. Hence, there's no need to feel remorseful about it. Celine then reveals that when they asked the central vessel whether it should be completely restricted, all 3 main tentacles responded with a firm yes. If that hadn't been the case, they wouldn't have restrained it to this extent. Roland then tells them about Soraya, who can paint objects with ultimate durability, and another girl, Softfeather, who can make objects sticky. If they work together, they could create something even stronger than chains. Using this method to restrict the vessel would also prevent harming it. So, if they allow him, he can make it possible. The witches are more than willing to have his help. But before leaving, Roland wants to ask the vessel a very important question. Once he gets permission, he poses a simple arithmetic problem. If he has 2 baskets and each contains 2 apples, would there be 4 apples in total? The vessel responds affirmatively. The witches, on the other hand, are bewildered as to why Roland is asking such a basic question. Roland keeps the same question but scales up the numbers to assess the vessel's arithmetic skills. Once again, the central vessel responds correctly. Roland is pleased to see that the entity is capable of calculating numbers much faster than a layman. Even though it can only answer yes or no, it could still prove extremely useful to the mathematics department. They could use it to validate calculations, reducing the chances of errors. He compliments the vessel, calling it an impressive marvel. However, Pasha reminds him that the vessel is incapable of fluent communication. But to Roland, even yes or no responses is still a form of communication. He then decides to push the vessel further. He asks if one main tentacle is equivalent to 1, and 2 main tentacles equal 2, can it light up all 3 tentacles to represent 3? Of course, the vessel fails to do so. Pasha grimly explains that this is beyond its capacity. It had to express its agreement in a more complicated way, and got confused in the process. She mentions that they have tried asking the vessel to express simple ideas and even short sentences. However, once it encounters a question that cannot be answered simply with yes or no, it slows down significantly and becomes confused, just like it did now. Hearing this, Roland begins to wonder if he has triggered some kind of logical barrier within the vessel's mind. So he asks Pasha if the vessel will be all right. Pasha assures him that it will recover after a moment of rest. She once asked the vessel contradictory questions, which resulted in it remaining unresponsive for several weeks. After this little experiment, Roland realizes that the vessel is not a simple plug-and-play tool. If he cannot find a way for it to answer complex questions using only yes or no, then it would be almost useless. If only he could transport it to the mathematics department. But that isn't possible right now, as he has yet to gain the full trust of the Tequila Witches. For now, he decides to wait until the exploration of the Snowy Mountains is complete. More than anything, he still needs to build trust with the Tequila Witches. Currently, only a rough frame of this underground city has been constructed, serving merely as a temporary underground residence. Only once tunnels connect the numerous peaks of the impassable mountain range could they consider it a true hidden stronghold. With artillery installations and military fortifications above ground, it could then be incorporated into Neverwinter's outermost defense line. Later, back in the castle, the shocked faces of Missan, Kyle Sichi, and a few other important figures reveal their disbelief. They are utterly baffled after seeing the Tequila Witches, who resemble nightmarish monsters. The only person who remains composed is Iris. Roland attempts to read her expression, but he fails completely. Regardless, Roland formally introduces the Witches of Tequila, explaining that they will be crucial allies in the fight against the Devils. Right now, their immediate goal is to cooperate in exploring the Snowy Mountains. Given the wonders everyone has witnessed over the past 2 years, Roland hopes they will not struggle to accept the existence of these witches. Boroff then raises his concerns. The finance department is in the final stage of balancing its accounts, so he strongly advises against any changes to current plans. Additionally, the months of demons have yet to pass, and they have already dispatched one team to the southernmost region. Sending another team to the Snowy Mountains could leave them with insufficient troops stationed in the border city. Meanwhile, Knight Carter expresses his skepticism about the new allies. As far as he is concerned, the witches could betray them at any time. Another military officer adds that deploying more troops might strain their food supply, which could lead to unrest among the citizens if word about these new allies spreads. Carl voices his own concerns. He worries that the witches' settlement in the northern mountains could lead to unintended consequences. If they excavate too much, they might cause catastrophic collapses in key mining areas. One by one, everyone pleads with Roland to reconsider his decision. At this moment, Roland silences them all and reveals his grand plan, which is to unite all regions by the next year. Not only that, but the following year will mark the official celebration of his ascension to the throne. Once he becomes the official king of Grey Castle, those present will become the first ministers of his court, responsible for managing the entire nation alongside him. The room falls into stunned silence, the weight of his words sinking in. Those present feel honored by the prospect of holding such prestigious titles and influence. Roland continues, explaining that Grey Castle's territory has expanded like never before. They now rule the western deserts, the eastern islands, and soon they will be the sole rulers of the southern lands and the northern plains. To ensure the nation's stability, the First Army will be extremely busy in the coming year. With only a few troops left to guard Neverwinter, exploring the Great Snowy Mountains is more crucial than ever. He cannot afford to encounter unexpected dangers at critical moments. Knight Carter questions whether they could explore the mountains using only the First Army and the Witch Union. Roland explains that in tunnels devoid of light and filled with fierce winds, guns and cannons will be of limited use. There will be no ideal locations for artillery, and they lack proper maps of the area. If they encounter a hybrid monster in such conditions, the casualties among the First Army could be devastating. This is why he insists on teaming up with the Tequila Witches. The Witches of Tequila and the Witch Union can perfectly complement each other's abilities. The First Army will secure the rear and the already explored tunnel openings, ensuring all escape routes remain viable at all times. This is the best approach. No matter how difficult this plan may seem, everyone present is here to solve complications, not create them. If they cannot fulfill their roles, then City Hall has no need for them. With that said, Roland turns to Barov and asks if he still has issues with accounts and logistics. The old administrator, seeing the determination in Roland's eyes, has no choice but to comply. He assures Roland that there will be no issues and that he will present revised reports with updated future plans. One by one, the others acknowledge their responsibilities and duties as well. Once the situation settles, Roland instructs Iris to repeat the finalized plan. Iris begins narrating, explaining that for this mission, Tequila will dispatch 50 witches to cooperate with the fighters of the Witch Union. The First Army, under Brian's command, will contribute 500 men. The remaining troops will stay behind to guard Neverwinter under Night Carter's leadership, handling the demonic beasts that have been attacking the borders. Once she finishes relaying the details, Roland moves to dismiss the meeting. However, Iris suddenly interrupts, expressing her desire to be part of the expedition as well. She wants to accompany the First Army to the Great Snowy Mountains in the west. Barov immediately voices his concerns, reminding her of the dangers ahead, especially since she is neither a witch nor a soldier. But Iris stands firm. She reveals that she was once a sword-fighting instructor for knights, and few can withstand more than 5 moves against her. When it comes to demonic beasts, she is more than capable of defending herself. Roland then asks for her reasoning. She explains that the looming battle of divine will is a threat that none of the ministers can even begin to describe. They know nothing about the devils or the underground beings they may face. This lack of knowledge could hinder their ability to assist in managing the city. Some may think that dealing with devils is solely the First Army's responsibility, but in truth, every department must understand the threats they face. Hence, to assist Roland with this matter of the country, one must understand who they're fighting and how to defeat them. Roland is really glad she brought this up. He liked her response. Her statement gave him a bright idea, which is to let everyone experience war on the front lines before they get promoted on their path to power. That way, the ministers at City Hall will stop underestimating the battle, and they'll stop giving out ridiculous and impractical orders, like how Barov was against cooperation with the Tequila Witches. Anyway, Roland gives her the pass to join and tells her to be prepared for the unknown. Later, we see Iris preparing for her journey. As she packs, her brother Carlin asks how long she'll be gone, to which she replies she has no idea. He also notices she's not bringing her favorite bustier, which makes him wonder if she's not going out to visit noble families or attend fancy banquets. Iris is glad her brother is starting to gain perspective, but he still lacks proper manners. At the very least, he should be graceful in front of a lady. Not only is she trying to teach him manners, she also wants him to keep his true identity under wraps and only take notes of things around him. While doing this job diligently, he also wants to join the department where she works. But Iris believes his contribution isn't required there. The fact that Barov is constantly watching her means that if her brother ends up working with her, Barov will definitely bully him. In that case, as the big sister, she'd have to take action against it. If the reputation of the Candle family gets damaged, Roland's judgment of him will always be affected. So no matter how distant their relationship may seem on the outside, outsiders will still see them as a unit. In other words, no matter what he does in the future, he must understand that he's not doing it for himself. He's representing the entire family. Her brother thinks for a moment and promises to keep it in mind. She reflects on how her brother is clumsy and weak, not quite fitting to become the next heir of the family. But that doesn't matter, as the concept of nobility doesn't exist in the new government. She's sure her brother understands why they stayed in the city of Neverwinter. Her brother then asks where she's going and for how long, because he doesn't want to stay alone in this big place. She frowns at his insensitive remark, especially since he's the one who wanted such a big house, forcing her to spend 500 golden royals. Anyway, she reveals that where she's going is currently a secret. But if he wants to be part of this secret, he'll have to pay for it. Her brother is willing to cough up whatever is needed. So, she finally reveals her plans. She'll be visiting the Great Snow Mountain in the western region, and she'll be joining the First Army. Curious, her brother wants more details, asking what the purpose is. She explains that the place might be full of unknown monsters and perhaps enemies from a foreign race. It could be anything. They've also encountered comrades with tentacles, so it'll be a battle of monsters against monsters, something to behold. While her brother almost craps his pants at the mention of monsters, he asks why she's not scared at all. But Iris is actually quite excited. You see, the only reason they serve Roland is to achieve great power and protection. Power comes from the land and its people, so the more complex the people are, the richer the land becomes. The ancients, the foreigners, and even the devils have chosen to work with Roland, which means humans need to find power that can rule over humanity and all things beyond. Now that she has explained everything he wanted to know, she wants him to pay her back for what he owes. The next scene takes us down memory lane with Lorgar. There, she is seen going up against a massive centipede. But being the great fighter she is giving the monster a run for its money. Once she takes that giant monstrosity down, we learn that this was actually her first hunt, when she was only 12. From then on, she fell in love with the thrill of fighting and killing. In pursuit of her passion for battle, she also went one-on-one with a poisonous scorpion and defeated it without a hitch. Then came the wolves of the desert. She overestimated herself and ended up getting ganged up on by a bunch of wolves. But as she was on the brink of death, her powers awakened. She transformed into a massive wolf, and all those desert wolves instantly submitted to her. With 3 major challenges conquered, her last opponent was the same 4-winged demonic eagle. As she fights the eagle, Lorgar begins to wake up from her dream. But she does not want to wake up, she wants to keep fighting. Eventually, she wakes up in her bed. Seeing her awake, her caretaker rushes toward her with a rag in hand, intending to tend to her. But Lorgar is not some weak girl. She quickly notices that she has been completely healed. There are no wounds on her hands, and her legs are as good as new. She then wraps the blanket around her naked body and gets out of bed. She questions her caretaker about what happened while she was unconscious. The caretaker reveals that the Northerners brought a new goddess over, and she healed all of Lorgar's wounds. She didn't even use any herbs. With just a wave of her hand, all of the wounds miraculously disappeared. Lorgar finally realizes that Ash was not lying when she claimed that someone exists who can heal her. The caretaker further reveals that the goddess who healed her is no longer in Iron Sand City because the Asha clan took the first batch of sand people and has already started their journey to the southern region of Grey Castle. This comes as a great surprise to Lorgar. To think the Osha clan has started their operation so soon. Out of curiosity, she asks her caretaker how long she was unconscious. The caretaker promptly holds up 3 fingers. She then fills Lorgar in on the events that took place over the last 6 days. Apparently, the Wildwave clan took over the Blackwater clan, which was critically weakened. Together, they challenged them to a divine duel, but the Blackwater Patriarch didn't fight. He forfeited. Now the Wildflame clan has taken the 3rd rank. Since they lost their number 1 position, the caretaker fears they will now have to leave the castle as well. After taking it all in, Lorgar decides to meet her father, but her caretaker suddenly reminds her to put on a hood to cover herself. There have been many outsiders in the stone castle, and some of them are here to discuss matters with the Patriarch. But Lorgar refuses to wear the hood. She is done hiding. She remembers her father's words, how he wanted her to hide her animal traits from the public eye because, as head of the clan, she might attract a lot of unwanted attention. But Lorgar is done hiding. She does not care if she looks different from a normal human. It does not change the fact that she is a warrior. So with her chin up, she proudly walks through the bustling marketplace and arrives at the castle to meet her father. The guards at the gate are glad to see her recovered. Anyhow, as soon as she enters the castle, she sees her father arguing with a man named Kabucha. Apparently, he wants Changuz to leave the castle, claiming he does not belong there. But Changuz argues that they were promised at least 3 days to move out, so the unnecessary aggression makes no sense. Changuz's right-hand man quickly draws his sword, ready to fight this bastard. But Changuz stops him before things escalate any further. It is then that they suddenly notice Lorgar standing at the gate. While her father and his people are relieved and happy to see her in full health, that bastard trying to kick her father out is in an absolute frenzy. It just does not make sense to him. How is she alive when she had been critically injured? It is literally impossible. They had seen her bones shatter when she fell from the platform. Some of them are also shocked by her appearance, as they had never noticed her tail and animal-like ears before. Lorgar walks toward them with confidence and lets them know that she fully acknowledges the loss of the duel and is willing to leave the throne. However, she wants to have a little chat with this so-called patriarch named Kombucha. The bastard quickly responds, sternly yapping about how he has won, and since she is no longer the head of the top clan, she has no right to set foot in the castle. Lorgar shuts this bastard up with a swing of her claw, causing him to stagger backward and fall. She makes it clear that while the Wildflame clan now ranks 3rd, she still won't stand for any bastard yapping at her father so bluntly. Not to mention, this area is the heart of all clans, where everyone is allowed to enter. So if this bastard wants to throw a tantrum, he can do it somewhere else. Kombucha's men take their master and start leaving before they get their asses whooped any more than they already have. Changuz's son vows to his father that they will take back their title as the number 1 clan in the coming months. While the soldiers swell with pride and excitement upon hearing this, Lorgar takes everyone by surprise when she reveals that she is planning to bid farewell. She wants to leave this place. Her brother questions her about the reason behind this unusual decision. Lorgar does not respond and remains quiet. Eventually, their father tells everyone to leave, intending to have a private chat with his daughter. Even her brother has no choice but to leave. Now that they are alone, the old man asks if she wants to migrate north. She responds affirmatively. She wants to go to the southern region of Grey Castle, find Ash, and then travel to the city of Neverwinter with her. But her father reminds her of the role she must fulfill in the Wildflame clan. To this, she reminds him that if they settle in the southern region, there will be plenty of oases, so they will no longer need to fight for water and food. After all, this has always been his plan. She knows that this is the only reason he did not accept the Wild Wave clan's challenge. She is certain that her father would never forfeit just because the enemy is strong. No matter how strong the Wild Wave clan is, he would always try his best to make them pay. That was how they became one of the most powerful clans in Iron Sand City. He did not accept the holy duel because he believes it has lost its meaning. Fighting without purpose will only result in meaningless deaths, and her father is too smart to let that happen. It's as if she can see through her father like the back of her hand. Her sharp perception causes the old man to crack a smile. Perhaps she is too smart, or perhaps she has gained the instincts of a wolf, or maybe it's a bit of both. The only reason he hadn't spoken about this was that he wanted to hear her thoughts after she woke up. Lorgar sets the record straight. She is not the brightest person out there to seek advice from. All she cares about is fighting, so she only listens to her fists. Every time she fights, she can feel what kind of person her opponent is. She recalls how, when she was little, her father taught her how to fight. She has withstood fists, kicks, and all sorts of weapons, so it's only natural for her to understand her father's thought process. The old man gives his daughter a sly grin and asks if she can fully trust Ash. From Lorgar's experience, she reveals that Ash is like a towering mountain, capable of bringing despair, but mountains have always been silent, and Ash never bothers to lie. Ash has a strong will to protect, and she is certain that the person Ash is protecting seems kind and warm toward her. The old man is glad to hear this. Since she is heading to the southern region in a few days, he decides to leave with her. But Lorgar does not want her father or the rest of the clan to tag along. If she arrives there first, she will be able to scout the oasis and the land Roland has promised before the entire clan arrives. You see, while she completely trusts Ash, she does not want to trust the person behind her so easily. While Ash may not have lied to them, there is a chance that Roland has deceived her. If the King of Grey Castle dares to deceive them, they will make sure he pays. But her father chooses to be a little optimistic and is willing to place his faith in Sister Echo's words. This also means that the King of Grey Castle could be a potential son-in-law for him. Of course, Lorgar gets annoyed and starts yelling. Besides, she is certain that Roland would never fall for a half-beast, half-human monster. The reason she wants to visit Grey Castle is because of the foreign enemies gathering there, and she wants to see them personally. It has nothing to do with loyalty. Her father eventually agrees to let her walk her own path. The night has descended, and Lorgar has continued her journey to the north. Once she is far enough from her hometown, she strips bare, and under the starry night, she transforms into her werewolf form. Grabbing her bag with her mouth, she dashes through the desert. We then cut to Roland, who is sitting in his office when suddenly, Anna sits on his desk, just like Nightingale used to do. Of course, Roland is not used to seeing Anna in place of Nightingale. We then flash back to the past, where Nightingale has a final conversation with Anna before sailing to Sand City. Anna promises to take care of Roland and everyone, and also hopes that Nightingale returns home safely. In the present, as Anna leans toward Roland, they both begin to heat up, ready for some foreplay. But they are soon interrupted by 76, who spooks the hell out of them. Roland is bewildered to see her, especially since he had been sure that Phyllis would be eager to explore the ruins of the underground located in the Great Snowy Mountains. Phyllis admits that her fellow sisters wanted her to tag along, but she stayed behind to protect Majesty Roland. After all, she is extremely familiar with the castle, and she also knows every witch here. Anna is happy to hear this. She admits that even she is utterly powerless against the Stone of Divine Judgment. But Phyllis can manipulate anti-demon domains. Even when her opponent is a transcendent, she can still fight them without being at a disadvantage. So she is very glad to have Phyllis's help. But Phyllis humbly downplays her contributions, as she is merely doing her job. She then twirls around and proceeds to leave since there does not seem to be any danger lurking around. She further assures them that they can continue their foreplay as she won't mind. As the night deepens, we cut back to Roland, who is lighting up his night by clapping Anna once again. He gets on top of her for some fun, and once he falls asleep, he wakes up in the dream world. It looks like Zero has already prepared breakfast, and she is curious to know why he woke up late. To which he reminds her that it's a holiday today, and besides, he has plenty of things to do at night as an adult, so he doesn't see anything wrong with sleeping a little more. Zero makes a sassy remark, asking what he even does at night. As far as she has seen, he gets home earlier every day than her, meaning he is some loser who clearly does not have any friends or a career. Her bluntness catches Roland off guard, so he quickly tries to justify himself, saying that he is going out on a date later today. After a while, Roland gets up in his formal suit, ready for the date. Now that he is ready, he gets out and proceeds to knock on Garcia's apartment door. But before he can, he hears Zero screaming and running out of the apartment building. She looks terrified as she claims to have seen an unknown person inside. Roland rushes inside to check. The person does not seem like anyone we have seen before. Even Roland does not recognize this person, so he proceeds cautiously. But as fate would have it, the lady in front of him is Phyllis, who is astonished to see Roland there. Of course, Roland is also boggled out of his mind. Zero has the same bewildered reaction to see this woman calling him Majesty. Phyllis once again confirms her identity. Roland, on the other hand, is trying to wrap his head around how she was able to enter his dream world. For a moment, he wonders if this world is opening up and allowing others to enter as well. But if that's the case, then why wasn't Anna able to enter? Before Roland can ask her any questions, Zero butts in with questions of her own. First of all, she wants to know why this woman is calling him Majesty. Roland quickly comes up with an excuse on the spot, stating that she is a distant relative of his. As for her calling him Majesty, it's just a joke between them, and they basically grew up together, so it's pretty normal. Of course, Zero is not buying this bullcrap because he was just as shocked as her when he failed to recognize Phyllis. But Roland turns the question back at her, making it clear that she was the one panicking and nearly peeing her pants. As Roland and Zero continue their back and forth, Phyllis apologizes to Roland, explaining that she didn't mean to scare anyone. Eventually, Zero kicks Roland over the insult he caused her and begins to storm off. While Roland feels embarrassed after getting hit by a little girl, Phyllis notices that Roland doesn't appear to be the noble king in this realm. But Roland reveals that he is, in fact, the master of this world. Anyway, they head into the room to have a chat. First, Roland makes sure to verify that the person he's speaking to is indeed Phyllis. Once he confirms it, he proceeds to start the conversation. The first thing to note is that she must be wearing the appearance of her former self. Right now, Roland's most curious about how and why she's here. Phyllis admits that she doesn't remember much. It was already quite late, and she was about to sever her connection with her body. She just wanted to fall into a deep sleep to regain her energy. But when she opened her eyes, she found herself here. She also wants to learn about this place and why Roland calls it a dream world. Well, as the name suggests, this world only exists when he is dreaming. But he is not sure if that rule still applies right now. Though it's pretty bizarre to see other people enter this world. It's like someone has entered his memory without his consent. He decides to run some tests to figure out how everything works. Roland places a ladder in the middle of the room and reveals how his dream ends when he falls from a great height. He asks Phyllis to try climbing the ladder and falling into the bed, after which he'll remove himself from the world too. If things go smoothly, he wants her to wait for him in the main hall, and he'll meet up with her shortly. But instead of climbing the ladder, she gets uncomfortably close to Roland and requests that he pinch her hard. Roland is unsure if this is necessary, as pain won't wake her up. He knows this because he's tried this before, but Phyllis insists that she just wants to feel it. Realizing that her desire to feel pain comes from the fact that witches of divine punishment can't feel anything with their bodies, Roland decides it might be worth it for her to feel something in the dream. As soon as he pinches her, the woman starts to moan and groan. While the moans are due to the pain, they sound more like moans of pleasure. Meanwhile, Zero is eavesdropping with her ear pressed to the door to catch all the juicy details. Poor girl ends up hearing more than she bargained for, leading to intense embarrassment. Phyllis, on the other hand, is absolutely enjoying the thrill from the pinch. After catching her breath, she lights up like a kid in a candy store and asks for more. Roland suggests that she can do something like that herself, but Phyllis believes that hurting herself with her own hands is not much fun. While she is inside this dream world, she wants to make the most out of it. What if she loses the ability to come back here after waking up? So for now, she wants this dream to last a little longer. Roland acknowledges her wishes and agrees to give her what she wants. Just as Phyllis expresses her gratitude, Zero starts banging on the door, reminding them that the tea is ready. Roland is left confused, wondering what the hell she's doing here this time. She usually would have refused to talk to him after getting frustrated, but now she's even making tea. Not to mention, she's banging on the door like she's desperate to deliver it. When the angry girl bursts in, she seems empty-handed, so Roland asks her where the tea is. She sternly tells him it's in the dining room and that he can go get it himself. Also, she doesn't want him making weird noises, as she's trying to focus on her work. Out of frustration, Roland simply shuts the door in her face. Phyllis then curiously asks who she is. Instead of revealing Zero's identity, Roland just says she's a tenant who leeches off him, so there's nothing to worry about. Phyllis requests that Roland continue the pain-inflicting session, promising to stay quiet this time. Roland finds this whole situation exhausting. There are literally millions of other things she could experience, but she just wants to feel pain? This is next-level stuff. Roland suggests showing Phyllis around. This place is completely new to her, something she's never seen before. Later, Roland gets a phone call from Garcia, who's yelling at him for not meeting her, despite them already planning it. She's so loud that Roland literally has to pull the phone away from his ear. He tries to get away by telling her that he has a surprise guest at home, so he has to keep them company and can't leave. But Garcia isn't buying his excuse. She even made an effort to invite the seniors from the association, but but she didn't know Roland would ditch the plans at such a critical moment. Roland pretends the signal is bad while sitting in a taxi and cuts the call. Later, they arrive at the shopping mall. Phyllis sits with Zero while Roland comes back with a tray full of KFC food. Zero is bewildered at the massive quantity of food. She thinks Roland shouldn't have brought so much or spent so much money just because he got a job. But Roland reminds her that it's not every day they come here, so she should appreciate the generosity he's showing instead of complaining. He then hands a burger to Phyllis as well. As soon as she takes a bite, literal tears start pouring down her face as if she's eaten something ungodly. Zero is confused as to why she is crying for no reason. Roland explains that it's been a long time since Phyllis ate anything. Her family doesn't treat her well. They always wanted a boy, but they got her instead. Internally, Roland reflects that a simple meal like this is something a witch of divine punishment would fight for, even if it cost them their life. Since he's not sure if Phyllis can enter this dream world again, he wants to treat her well and make her as much happy as he can. Phyllis loves the food so much that she ends up eating a mountain of unhealthy burgers. Roland, on the other hand, is relieved it's just an ordinary restaurant. If it were something fancy, his wallet would probably be crying in the corner by now. Once they've eaten enough, Roland decides to bring up the topic of dreams. He asks Phyllis if she noticed anything unusual before she was transported into the dream. Phyllis thinks for a moment and claims that nothing special happened back then. She was just leaning against the wall, cutting off her consciousness like usual to recover energy while staying alert. Roland asks if she can still sense changes in the outside world when she cuts off her consciousness. Phyllis replies that she can't control her body when she enters that state, but she can still sense danger. She can't really explain how, but it's like a different feeling, one she can't describe. Celine called it a latent connection. While they're talking, Zero is lost and doesn't understand what they're discussing. Roland simply tells her that they're just having a therapy session and educates her not to interrupt when adults are talking. If she's bored, she can go to the park and watch other people. Zero, a little frustrated, eventually walks off, leaving the two of them behind. Phyllis continues and reveals that when she enters a slumber, she should be floating in complete darkness. There should be no light, no voice, nothing at all, and she is incapable of moving. However, this time she arrived in Roland's dream world. She was too shocked to speak. Fortunately, she bumped into him soon enough. Hearing this, Roland can only think that some external factor must have connected her to his dream world. They both come to the same conclusion. It must be the light pillar. Phyllis is sure their light pillars overlapped, but Roland believes there's more to it. Otherwise, Anna and Nightingale would have ended up here too. Perhaps cutting off one's consciousness is the key factor. Roland thinks deeply about it and eventually has an epiphany. Before he can share his realization, chaos erupts in the restaurant as someone transforms into an undead being. As people start running around in panic, Phyllis recalls how Roland had told her this place was supposed to be safe. Roland reassures her that this is just an anomaly, so she should ignore it. But deep in his mind, Roland is worried. After all, he's supposed to be the master of this world, so why is there an attack while he's out eating? For a moment, he wonders if he's just imagining things, though he's been hearing more reports of people in the dream world awakening strange powers. Most of them don't know how to control their abilities, so they end up becoming monsters. Phyllis is ready to fight the enemy, but she's not sure what it actually is. Roland reveals that their enemy is a fallen evil that just awakened. Calling it a hybrid demon would not be far-fetched. However, it's invincible against normal weapons because it's protected by the power of nature. To defeat it, she'll need to use the same kind of power. Phyllis has no idea what the power of nature is. Roland explains that it's the magic power of this world, and there's no gender restriction on it. To demonstrate, he rips the support railing from a staircase with his bare hands. Roland is now no less than a transcendent, but he can only use these powers in his dream world. Phyllis is glad to hear this, as it means he is no longer a mere mortal. Moving on, Roland questions her if she can still use her magic powers since she is currently in her original body. Now that he says this, Phyllis remembers that she can. With that, Roland flashes her a smile and tells her to get ready to take on some fallen evil. But unsurprisingly, Phyllis struggles to activate her powers, as she's long forgotten how to use them. Eventually, she summons two giant pitch-black hands. Apparently, these are demonic talons, which she can retract or lash out at will. They're much sharper than any metal and can protect her from ambushes while fighting high-level devils. She used them during her battle with the demon army. Roland didn't expect her to be such a powerful fighter witch. To him, she doesn't look like one, so it's natural for him to assume otherwise. She reveals that she was once the guard of the three chiefs during the days of Tequila. After their little talk about her powers, Roland begins ascending the stairs, as the fallen evil would have sensed her magic and should appear any second now. Suddenly, someone crashes down from the roof. It's none other than the fallen evil itself. The monster seems incredibly powerful. It quickly charges its left hand with dark red energy and lunges at them. Phyllis remains unfazed and dashes toward the creature. A giant explosion erupts as the monster's energy crashes into her. The attack is powerful enough to send her flying backward, and she ultimately crashes into Roland. Even after hitting Roland, her momentum doesn't break, and they both fall through the window together. In the aftermath, Roland looks like he's been beaten up worse than a piñata. Despite the huge impact, he only feels a slight numbness in his back, which only indicates that he's gotten stronger. Phyllis doesn't look too great either. She apologizes to Roland for being so complacent, but she assures him there's nothing to worry about. She's got this covered. The fallen evil comes back, kicking Phyllis's broken shadow hand away. It then charges up its left hand again with that same red energy, going all out. But that severed black hand of Phyllis moves on its own, and cuts the bastard's head down. The talon then attaches back to Phyllis's back. She proceeds to grab the power of nature from the monster's hand. She passes it to Roland, and as soon as he takes it, a golden light beams out of it and begins to flow into his body. Roland then decides it's time to leave, as they aren't supposed to be seen there. Though they might have eradicated the evil, not everyone has the right to prosecute it. No matter how evil a creature is, it can only be arrested and interrogated by the professionals. Of course, Phyllis is not used to this kind of laws, so this whole situation seems strange to her. Zero eventually joins them, and the trio begins their journey home. Once they reach the building, they come across Garcia in the corridor. Roland is immediately on edge, expecting the worst since he hung up on her earlier. Before Garcia can lash out at him, Roland points to Phyllis and insists that he indeed had relatives at home, meaning he wasn't making excuses. But Garcia ignores his defense and grabs him by the arm, dragging him along. Phyllis steps in before Garcia can drag Roland off and stops her. She doesn't like how Garcia is treating Roland. After all, he's the ruler of this world. But Roland quickly places his hand over her mouth before she can say anything more. He then instructs both Zero and Phyllis to return to the apartment while he handles things for a few minutes. Once they're out of earshot, Garcia pins Roland against the wall and demands to know if he has made up his mind about joining the association. Before responding, Roland settles into her apartment and requests some water to revitalize himself. Garcia, annoyed, tells him that instead of responding, he's trying to boss her around. Reluctantly, she brings him some chilled water. Roland reveals that reports of fallen evils have been on the rise. He even encountered one himself while out eating. He wonders if the Martial Arts Association has been slacking off, given the significant increase in fallen evil reports. The association contacted the closest martial artists in the area, and she was one of them. But she did not get any chance to do anything since the monster was dead already, and its core was gone, meaning someone must have gotten to it before they did. Well, it looks like she has no clue that Roland is the one who killed that monster and took the core. Roland is curious to know who that might be. Garcia responds that she can't satisfy his curiosity any more than she already has, as it's all highly confidential. She does explain, though, that the rise in reports is due to the corrosion from the outside world worsening, and a calamity might befall this world in the near future. The mention of calamity catches Roland's attention, so he inquires more about it. She claims that no one knows for sure. Maybe the world will end, or everyone will turn into monsters. That's why the association needs more people to stand up and fight against the corrosion. However, this has nothing to do with his background. Every person with the power of nature must take responsibility. She understands his fear and hesitation, but insists that they need to stand up or risk losing everything. Roland takes a moment to reflect. Originally, he wanted to join the association to earn money and gain some reputation. But it seems more complicated than that. He needs the power of the Martial Arts Association to understand what's causing the mutation of the power of nature. As for the corruption from the outside world, he suspects that the Bloody Moon is somehow involved. Meanwhile, Garcia is dying to hear his response about whether he wants to join or not. Finally, Roland decides to enroll. He's ready to fill out any paperwork or legislation required. Later, back at our boy's apartment, Phyllis asks him about the person they encountered earlier. Roland briefs her on how people with awakened powers in this world are called martial artists, and Garcia is one of them. He assures her that no one in this dream world is a threat to him, since only Phyllis knows his true identity. Phyllis believes he created her and everyone else here, so he should have absolute authority. But Roland explains that this isn't how anyone here thinks. Everyone in this world has their own memories and consciousness, and their lives have nothing to do with him. This world operates by its own rules, and he's no exception. It's then that Phyllis realizes that this world is actually a place Roland has spent his life before. She also starts to believe that being the fourth prince of Grey Castle is just a facade he's putting up. Externally, Roland tries to stay calm and asks why she believes this. But internally, he's panicking, wondering how she figured out that he's not really the fourth prince. If you liked this video, feel free to support me on Patreon, link in the description.